Chapter 11:10. Five Elements Sect. The huge courtyard was separated into individual rooms. Over 1,000 people lived here. Sima too went downstairs personally. This time, over 1,000 people entered the Five Elements Sect, and he focused on nurturing them. It would be a lie if the disciples of the Five Elements Sect said that they weren't envious and jealous. Longao didn't care about anything else. After entering the Five Elements Sect, he immediately started cultivating the Five Elements heaven-devouring art. With the help of the Five Elements Chaos Stone Tablet, he successfully activated the 5 sides of the Five Elements Stone Tablet. This time, it was a great help to Longao. 5 cultivation techniques combined. It could be said that Longao was able to convert the power of the 5 elements. He could also convert the 5 types of cultivation techniques. It was considered a significant improvement. Big Brother Black Wolf is over there. The crowd was densely packed. The disciples of the Five Elements Sect finally exploded. Over 1,000 people came to the courtyard. Looking at the frightened cowards, all the disciples of the Five Elements Sect laughed crazily. Guimei brought Dehai and Stone along and mixed in with the crowd. After Longao walked past, Stone and Dehai immediately found Longao's traces. The two of them pointed at Longao and laughed as they spoke to Guimei. Guimei nodded. Guimei smiled and said, "Wait, let's take his life in the chaos." Although Sima too wanted to focus on nurturing over 1,000 people and find the person he was looking for, he didn't have time to do so. Otherwise, these disciples of the Five Elements Sect wouldn't dare to come here casually. John Fei was the leader of the 1,000 disciples of the Five Elements Sect. Not only was he a core disciple of the Five Elements Sect, but he was also a titled Great Emperor. "Senior Brother Jean, they are the trash that entered the sect this time. There are over 1,000 of them." Jean Fei nodded coldly and looked high and mighty. Logically speaking, with his cultivation realm and being a core disciple of the Five Elements Sect, Jean Fei shouldn't be like this. It turned out that Jean Fei was a ruthless and jealous person. He couldn't bear to see others stronger than him. Among these people, no one dared to say that there wouldn't be anyone stronger than him in the future. Moreover, the sect master had already said that he wanted to nurture over 1,000 people. If someone among these people rose up, wouldn't they be stepping on him? Us. Looking at the Five Elements Sect's disciples in front of them, the people who entered the Five Elements Sect this time were all dumbstruck. They stood there trembling with fear and even stuttering when they spoke. They had just entered the Five Elements Sect. In their eyes, the Five Elements Sect disciples before them were all godlike existences. No one dared to speak. Even Longao didn't speak. If it didn't concern him, he would just let it go. The main reason he had entered the Five Elements Sect this time around was to verify his Tao of the Five Elements, and cultivate the Five Elements heaven-devouring mantra. With that, there was no need for him to cause any trouble for himself. "All of you, listen carefully. You are nothing more than trash. The reason why you were able to enter the Five Elements Sect is because the sect master is kind and is willing to take in trash like you. You're the trash. What right do you have to call us trash?" Some people were afraid, while others weren't. Some people didn't want to cause trouble, while others weren't afraid of it. Even though they knew that they were no match for the other party, there were still people who stood out. Just as they stood out, they were beaten back by the Five Elements Sect's disciples. Jean Fei sneered and said coldly, "Teach them a good lesson. Remember, make sure they remember this." Just as Jean Fei finished speaking, everyone behind him rushed out. The gap between the two parties was too big. It was almost a one-sided situation. "Black Wolf, we meet again. Weren't you very arrogant before? Now I would like to see if you can be arrogant again." No one dared to deal with Longao because Guimei and the other two had already surrounded Longao. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that there was a grudge between the two parties. If anyone interfered, wouldn't they be looking for trouble with Guimei? With Guimei's strength and identity, no one was willing to provoke him. Moreover, there were over 1,000 of them. Even if it was a one-on-one battle, they wouldn't be able to handle it. Looking down on others with your dog eyes. You don't know what's good for you. Your head must have been kicked by a donkey. Longao didn't want to cause trouble, but he wasn't afraid of it. These two people came to cause trouble. If he let them go just like that, how could he survive in the Five Elements sect in the future? You're courting death. With Gui Mei here, the two of them didn't believe that Black Wolf would dare to be impudent. Unless he was courting death. Dehai and Rockhead knew that Black Wolf wouldn't dare to make a move. Therefore, the two of them moved at the same time. In a flash, they had already arrived in front of Longao. Both of their palms struck out fiercely. Two blood-curdling screams were heard. Before the two of them could react, their bodies were like kites with a broken string. They were thrown out fiercely. Poochie. Spitting out blood, the two of them struggled to get up from the ground. Their faces were filled with disbelief. The two of them never thought that the other party would dare to make a move in front of Gui Mei. However, the two of them didn't know that Longao was merciful because of the Five Elements sect. Otherwise, with Longao's current strength, the two of them would be dead by now. Ha ha ha, Black Wolf, I have to admit that you are really arrogant. You dared to hurt people in front of me, Gui Mei. Gui Mei's figure flashed. His speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he had already arrived in front of Longao. His palms filled the sky. At a glance, there were palms everywhere. From this, it could be seen that Gui Mei's strength wasn't simple. Wiping the blood from the corner of their mouths, Dehai and Rockhead sneered. With Gui Mei personally making a move, even if Black Wolf had 3 heads and 6 arms, he wouldn't be able to survive. Gui Mei's strength was there for all to see. What happened in the end? Gui Mei's ending was almost exactly the same as the two of them. He left quickly and returned even faster. This time, Longao didn't show any mercy. Kacha kacha. The sound of bones breaking was heard. Gui Mei had already fainted. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Ah! Looking at Gui Mei, who was lying on the ground, no one knew if he was dead or alive. Dehai and Rockhead screamed crazily as if they had seen a ghost. Everyone around them stopped and looked at Gui Mei on the ground. Their faces were filled with disbelief. A person who had just stepped into the Five Elements sect actually defeated Gui Mei in one move. What did this mean? Zhang Fei came in front of Longao and stared at the young man in front of him. He asked word by word, "Who are you?" "Senior brother Zhang." Slap. Before Rockhead could speak, Zhang Fei gave him a slap and sent him flying. He said coldly, "You can't do anything right. What use do the sect have for trash like you?" Gui Mei and the other two were defeated. Where would the Five Elements sect's face go? Black Wolf, the three of them asked for it. They can't blame anyone else. One had to admit that Longao was indeed arrogant. The words he said, not to mention someone who had just entered the Five Elements sect, even the disciples of the Five Elements sect, including Zhang Fei, wouldn't be so arrogant. It was because of this that everyone was shocked when they heard these words. Chapter 11:11. Zhang Fei's face darkened. Everyone could see that Zhang Fei was truly enraged. Even if Black Wolf could defeat Gui Mei, it didn't mean that he could defeat Zhang Fei. However, Zhang Fei and Gui Mei weren't on the same level. One was a black-grade Great Emperor, while the other was a titled Great Emperor. However, at this moment, "All of you get out!" With a roar, Sima Tu's group of 6 appeared. Sima Tu's face was filled with anger. He wouldn't care if it was something else. However, there was someone who could trigger the 5 elemental steel. If that person died, the consequences would be unimaginable. This was an opportunity for the 5 Elements sect. They couldn't miss this opportunity. "Sect Master, we're not convinced." Zhang Fei gave a signal to the people beside him. Even if they were unwilling, they could only obey Zhang Fei's orders. "Sect Master, none of them could trigger the 5 elemental steel, but..." Crack. Before the man could finish speaking, he fell to the ground and breathed his last. Ah! Looking at the corpse on the ground, everyone was dumbfounded. No one had expected the sect master to suddenly take action and kill him with a single move. What the hell happened? The sect master had never acted like this before. Everyone knew that the sect master was truly enraged at this moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted like this. All of you get out. If anyone dares to cause trouble in the future, no matter who it is, kill without mercy. Kill without mercy, kill without mercy. Sima Tu's voice reverberated throughout the heavens and earth. Everyone, including Zhang Fei, slowly left the courtyard. No one dared to say a word. In the blink of an eye, thousands of Five Elements sect disciples left the courtyard. The 5 vice sect masters didn't dare to say a word. They knew clearly why the sect master acted like this. In the end, it was because of the person who could trigger the 5 elemental steel. Sect master. He waved his hand. Looking at the thousands of people in front of him, Sima Tu suddenly said, "You're Black Wolf?" "Yes." Sima Tu recognized Black Wolf, but he still didn't put him in his eyes. From the beginning, Sima Tu didn't think that Black Wolf was the person who triggered the 5 elemental steel. Not bad talent. Sima Tu had seen the battle between Longao and Gui Mei, but even so, Sima Tu had only said a few words. "All of you come with me." The thousands of people didn't know what the sect leader wanted to do, but they followed him with trepidation. In front of 5 Elements Gate. Inside the 5 Elements Steel. Sima Tu's intention was very simple. He wanted to see for himself who among the thousands of people was able to sense the 5 elemental stone steels at the same time, and achieve the 5 elemental light that had not appeared for 10,000 years. "Sect Master, are we going in as well?" "All of you come in." Everyone entered the 5 elemental stone tablet. Sima Tu went straight to the point and said, "You all immediately comprehend the 5 elemental stone tablet. As long as you can comprehend all the chaos stone tablets, I will take you as a disciple." Hearing those words, everyone was shocked because every single one of them knew what it meant to become the disciple of the 5 Elements School's head. However, everyone was very serious because it was almost impossible to comprehend all 5 sides of the 5 elemental stone tablet at the same time. None of them hesitated, but Longao was cautious. The reason was simple. He didn't want the 5 Elements School to know that he was able to comprehend the 5 elemental stone tablets at the same time. Just like that. In 3 days, no one was able to comprehend the 5 elemental stone tablets at the same time. Sima Tu and the other 5 didn't know what to do. After thinking about it, they couldn't think of a better way to find out who this person was. The 6 of them were completely depressed. Outside the 5 elemental stone tablet. "Sect Master, we can't go on like this. If we can't find this person, we might miss the opportunity." Nodding his head, Sima Tu thought for a while and said, "I have already thought about it. Tomorrow, I will arrange for everyone to enter the 5 elemental space." 5 elemental space? Hearing those words, everyone stood up with shock written all over their faces. The 5 of them knew clearly what the 5 elemental space meant. "Sect Master, the old ancestor left a message that only those who can trigger the 5 elemental stone tablets at the same time can enter the 5 elemental space. Until now, we still haven't figured out who is able to trigger the 5 elemental stone tablets at the same time. If more than 1,000 people enter the 5 elemental space, the old ancestor..." Although the Earth Element sect master didn't finish his words, the meaning in his words was very clear. How could Sima Tu not know about this? He sighed helplessly and said, "How could I not know about this? After more than 10,000 years, we finally have an opportunity. As long as this person can grow, our 5 Elements School will rise. Tell me, what method can we use to find this person?" Sima Tu was really anxious. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thought of such a method. Back then, when the old ancestor of the 5 Elements School died, he broke into the 5 elemental space. Furthermore, he had set a rule that no one, not even the sect master of the 5 Elements School, could enter the 5 elemental space unless they could trigger the 5 elemental stone tablets. For tens of thousands of years, no one in the 5 Elements sect had been able to trigger the 5 Elements stone steel and draw out the light that had not appeared for tens of thousands of years. Now that it finally appeared, Sima Tu would definitely not choose to give up. In order to prevent the Five Elements School from losing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the Five Elements School had to go against the will of the old ancestor of the Five Elements School. The five of them were speechless because what the sect master said was true. Under such circumstances, it was simply impossible to find this person. In the end, the five of them chose to accept because the sect master's intention was very clear. He wanted to use the Five Elements School to find this person and deal with him on the spot. If this person could truly grow, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the Five Elements School. Sect Master, we'll go and arrange it now. Remember, don't let anyone know about this. Announce to the public that they are not qualified to enter the Five Elements School and have all left. How could the five of them not know about the sect master's intention? They all nodded in agreement. This matter could not be leaked. Otherwise, it would not be a good thing for the Five Elements School. Only one person could trigger the 5 elemental stone tablets every 10,000 years. If they lost this opportunity, who knew how long they would have to wait? There's no time to lose. All of you start immediately. I'll go and open the Five Elements School now. Tomorrow at this time, bring everyone here. Yes, Sect Master. The 5 Vice Sect Masters bowed respectfully and slowly left. Chapter 11-12. Brother Long, you have successfully comprehended the power of the 5 elements. If you continue to cultivate, I believe you will be able to achieve the 5 elements reincarnation in no time. 5 elements reincarnation. Longao roughly understood what Bai Ling was talking about. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Once the power of the 5 elements merged, it would form the 5 elements reincarnation. Bai Ling, do you mean that I can leave the 5 elements sect now? To be honest, Longao really didn't want to stay any longer. The longer he stayed, the more trouble he would have to face. He had activated the 5 elements stone tablet and brought out the 5 elements light that hadn't appeared in 10,000 years. The 5 elements sect had already started to take this matter seriously. Longao had full confidence that as long as he was willing to leave, he could leave at any time. Brother Long. Without waiting for Bai Ling to speak, Xiling said, Longao, if you want to comprehend the 5 elements reincarnation sooner, you have to stay in the 5 elements sect. What did that mean? Longao, have you heard of the 5 elements space of the 5 elements sect? He shook his head. Longao really didn't know about the 5 elements space that Xiling was talking about. He only knew that there was a 5 elements stone tablet in the 5 elements sect. Back then, the ancestor of the 5 elements sect observed the 5 elements chaos stone tablet and created the 5 elements stone tablet. I have to say that this person's talent and potential is the strongest I have ever seen. How could Longao not know about this? The fact that the ancestor of the 5 elements sect could observe the 5 elements chaos stone tablet and create the 5 elements stone tablet was already a problem. So what? Longao already understood the 5 elements stone tablet very well. It seemed impossible to use the 5 elements stone tablet to condense the 5 elements reincarnation. However, Longao didn't say anything. He knew Xiling's personality very well. If he wasn't confident, he believed that Xiling would never ask. Longao, back then, the old ancestor of the 5 elements sect used some mysterious method to create a 5 elements space. If a person who cultivates the power of the 5 elements enters the 5 elements space, he will be able to form a 5 elements reincarnation. At this point, Violet's spirit did not continue, but the meaning of her words was very clear. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he understood what Xiling meant. 5 elements space. In other words, if he could enter the 5 elements space, the speed and probability of condensing the 5 elements reincarnation would greatly increase. If that was the case, why did he leave? What he wished for came true. At this moment, the 5 vice sect leaders arrived. The general idea was that at this time tomorrow, the 5 of them would bring everyone to the 5 elements space. The 5 of them did not say much. Others didn't know what was going on, but Longao knew that his luck was a little too good. Longao, who had originally wanted to leave, heard that the 5 elements sect wanted him to enter the 5 elements space. He could use this opportunity to condense the 5 elements samsara. The night passed in silence. The next day, everyone entered the 5 elements space. The 5 elements space was boundless. In the air, there were 5 different colored airflows. They were metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. However, the 5 elements airflows in the 5 elements space were extremely powerful. The 5 elements space was a forbidden area of the 5 elements sect. No one, not even the sect leader of the 5 elements sect, could enter casually. The 5 elements sect's old ancestor had made a famous rule that those who could not sense the 5 elements stone tablet and cultivated the power of the 5 elements could not enter the 5 elements space. Otherwise, they would be killed by the 5 elements space. Sima 2's meaning was simple. It was too difficult to find the person who could draw out the 5 elements light by normal means. Sima 2 would not do this if he had a better way. Left with no choice, Sima 2 decided to let everyone enter the 5 elements space. Apart from those who cultivated the power of the 5 elements, the rest of the people could not withstand the 5 elements airflows. Whoever could come out alive would be the person who drew out the 5 elements light. Sacrificing thousands of people just to find one person. To the 5 elements sect, thousands of people were dispensable. Not to mention thousands, even if it was 10,000, 100,000, or 1,000,000 people, as long as they could find the person they wanted, they could sacrifice them. Without a doubt. Other than Longao, the thousands of people who entered the 5 elements space were instantly killed by the 5 elements airflows. No one was spared. Looking at the cultivators who were killed one by one, Longao felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, he had already comprehended the power of the 5 elements. Otherwise, he would have suffered the same fate. Brother Long, quickly comprehend the power of the 5 elements. I hope you can use the 5 elements airflows to form the 5 elements reincarnation. Nodding his head. Longao was very clear about Bai Ling's intention. He did not dare to hesitate at all. He immediately released his 5 elements power and began to slowly merge the 5 elements airflow. Not only that. Longao released the 5 elements stone tablets aura from his dantian and circulated the 5 elements heaven-devouring chant, hoping to comprehend the 5 elements reincarnation sooner. 1 month later. Outside the 5 elements space. According to the 6 people's estimation, they should be able to find the original body in 3 days. But what was the result? For a whole month, there was no news. Even the 6 of them did not dare to enter the 5 elements space casually. Because among the 6 of them, even Sima 2 had only comprehended 4-5 elements airflows. Otherwise, how could such a good thing not happen to him? Sect leader. Before the wood element sect leader could finish his words, the entire 5 elements space began to tremble. A loud rumbling sound was heard and the 6 people's faces changed. They did not dare to hesitate and retreated 10 meters away. Disappeared? Looking at the 5 elements space in front of them that suddenly disappeared, the 6 people were completely dumbfounded. They did not know what had happened. Why did the 5 elements space disappear for no reason? The 5 elements space and 5 elements stone tablet were the most important and precious items of the 5 elements sect. They were also the only things left behind by the 5 elements sect's old ancestor. For so many years, the 5 elements sect had been very careful with their treasures, fearing that the 5 elements space and 5 elements stone tablet would be lost. Who would have thought that the 5 elements space would disappear? Seal the sect immediately. No one is allowed to step into the 5 elements sect. No one is allowed to step out of the 5 elements sect. The 5 vice sect leaders naturally knew the seriousness of the matter. The disappearance of the 5 elements space was like an earthquake to the 5 elements sect. The 5 of them did not dare to hesitate and immediately sealed the 5 elements sect. As for Sima 2, he could only stare at everything in front of him. The 5 elements space had disappeared just like that. Even now, Sima 2 was still unwilling to believe it. With the disappearance of the 5 elemental space, the person who triggered the 5 elemental stone steel had disappeared as well. The blow to the 5 elemental sect was obvious. Sima 2 could not accept it, but he was powerless. All he could do was watch. Chapter 11:13. With the disappearance of the 5 elements space, Sima 2 and the others did not know what had happened. With the 5 elements sect sealed, no one knew what had happened. Within the 5 elements space, Longao did not know about the disappearance of the 5 elements space. He thought that with the help of the 5 elements force and the 5 elements space, he could condense the 5 elements reincarnation. However, after a whole month, there was still no result. You don't have the 5 elements body, so you can't condense the 5 elements reincarnation. A heavy sigh was heard. Hearing the sigh, Longao was shocked. Looking at the middle-aged man who was slowly condensing the 5 elements force in front of him, Longao seemed to have guessed something. It seems that you have guessed my identity. The middle-aged man smiled warmly, just like a good father. 5 elements patriarch? Ha ha, that's right. It would be a lie to say that he was not shocked. Longao never thought that he would meet the legendary 5 elements patriarch in the 5 elements space. Violet Spirit had already said that the 5 elements patriarch's talent was unparalleled in the world. She believed that even the heavenly Tao could not compete with the 5 elements patriarch. Violet Spirit rarely praised others, so one could imagine how high the 5 elements patriarch's talent was. It was said that the 5 elements patriarch had already fallen. If that was the case, why would the 5 elements patriarch appear in front of him? Senior, my name is Longao. Long family? He nodded and then shook his head. Longao nodded and shook his head, which surprised the 5 elements patriarch. He asked, "What do you mean by nodding and shaking your head?" Senior, although I am a disciple of the Long family, I have no connection with them. I have re-established the Dragon sect, and I am the master of the Dragon sect. Longao was indeed the master of the Dragon sect. As for Longing, she was only the master of the Dragon sect. Hearing this, the 5 elements patriarch was even more surprised because he did not expect the young man in front of him to dare to do this. He knew very well what a Long family meant. Not only did the young man in front of him dare to break away from his Long family, but he also dared to rebuild the Dragon sect. This in itself showed how arrogant this young man was. 5 elements patriarch suddenly burst into laughter. Very good, very good. What a pity, what a pity. Senior, what do you mean by what you just said? Longao had also thought that something must have gone wrong for him to be unable to condense the 5 elements samsara. According to Xiling and Bai Ling's estimation, if there were no accidents, he would definitely be able to condense the 5 elements reincarnation with the help of the 5 elements space. But the result? Longao, only those with the 5 elements body can condense the 5 elements reincarnation. Even if you forcefully condense the 5 elements reincarnation, it will be a fake 5 elements reincarnation. Not only will it be useless, it will also hinder your cultivation. So that was the case. Longao finally understood why he had been unable to condense the 5 elements reincarnation all this time. It turned out that he did not possess the so-called 5 elements body at all. Longao, I don't need to say more. I believe you already know. Nodding his head, shrugging his shoulders helplessly, Longao said, "If that's the case, I won't force it. After tens of thousands of years of waiting, I thought that the 5 elements reincarnation would reappear this time. But I didn't expect that. Let's not talk about it. Although you don't possess the 5 elements body and can't condense the 5 elements reincarnation, you have been cultivating the power of the 5 elements. I believe it will be of great help to your cultivation." Longao did not speak. This time, he did not succeed in condensing the 5 elements reincarnation and knew that it would be impossible in this lifetime. He was more or less unwilling. Senior, if that's the case, I will leave first. Since he was unable to condense the 5 elements reincarnation, Longao did not want to stay any longer. As for the 5 elements heaven swallowing art, he would continue to cultivate it. Just as the 5 elements patriarch said, even if he could not condense the 5 elements reincarnation, at least cultivating the 5 elements heaven swallowing art would be of great help to his cultivation. Not to mention, the 5 elements heaven swallowing art came from the 5 elements primal chaos stone tablet. It was easy to imagine the power of the five elements heaven-swallowing art. Longao could almost say that even the five elements patriarch might not be able to sense the five elements heaven-swallowing art from the five elements primal chaos stone tablet. Longao, you and I are fated. I hope you can promise me one thing. Senior, please speak. Since you can activate the five elements primal chaos stone tablet and form the power of the five elements, I believe it will not be difficult for you to reach the peak of martial arts in the future. I hope that you can help the Five Elements sect in the future. I don't expect the Five Elements sect to remain strong, but I hope that it will not be destroyed. Longao could almost guess the Five Elements patriarch's intention. Senior, I promise you. He did not have any grudges with the Five Elements sect. If the situation allowed it in the future, if the Five Elements sect was in trouble, he would help. Thank you, Longao. Since you can cultivate the power of the five elements at the same time, I believe the five elements slave will be of greater use if he follows you. Just as the five elements patriarch finished speaking, an old man appeared. There was no aura fluctuation. Was the five elements slave a puppet? As expected. Longao, this is the five elements slave that I created with the help of the five elements reincarnation. He also has the power of the five elements. Ordinary people can't control him at all. Only those who cultivate the power of the five elements at the same time can. He will follow you in the future. Nodding his head, Longao was very clear about the five elements patriarch's intention. He just wanted him to owe him a favor. Even if the five elements sect was in trouble in the future, he would be embarrassed to refuse. Since things had come to this point, could he refuse? It was better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Not to mention, the other party was the Five Elements Patriarch, one of the most powerful warriors in the world. Even if he died, Longao was sure that if the Five Elements Patriarch attacked him, he might not be able to leave the Five Elements space. Without the slightest confidence, Longao smiled and said, "Thank you, Senior." Longao tried to sense the Five Elements slave in front of him and asked curiously, "Senior, I can't sense his strength at all. I want to ask, what is the strength of the Five Elements slave?" Longao was very surprised. Although he had guessed that the Five Elements slave refined by the Five Elements Patriarch was definitely not simple, he never thought that even he couldn't sense the strength of the Five Elements slave. Could it be that the strength of the Five Elements slave was similar to that of the Five Elements Patriarch? Impossible. Longao, the Five Elements slave was refined by me with the help of the Five Elements reincarnation and the power of space. As long as he doesn't attack, the five of you will be able to sense his true strength. However, I can guarantee that even if it's a Nirvana rebirth martial artist, he will not be a match for the Five Elements slave. Hearing this, Longao was pleasantly surprised. Because he really didn't expect that the Five Elements Patriarch gave him the Five Elements Patriarch would be so overbearing and not afraid of Nirvana Realm warriors. Chapter 11:14. The Five Elements Slave. Didn't that mean that with the Five Elements Slave, he could ignore Nirvana Realm cultivators? It would be a lie to say that he wasn't excited. Longao, although my Five Elements Slave can block any attack, it won't counterattack, nor will it take the initiative to attack. What did that mean? Longao was very depressed. He had thought that with the Five Elements Slave, he would be able to take revenge. But what was the result? Overall, this was already very good. At the very least, even if Shangguaniya wanted to kill him, he would have a guarantee. He wouldn't have to worry about running into Nirvana Realm cultivators. Longao, go! Before Longao could react, his body had already disappeared without a trace. Within the Five Elements space. Master God Diviner, I've already followed your orders and given the Five Elements slave to Longao. The God Diviner suddenly appeared beside the Five Elements' old ancestor. If Longao was still here, he would have seen this situation. He was very satisfied. I hope Longao won't disappoint me. The Five Elements Patriarch was very curious. Master God Diviner, since you want to help Longao, why don't you just do it yourself? Why do you want to borrow my hand? The Five Elements Patriarch was very curious about this. With the God Diviner's power, he could casually take out something and no one on the Martial Heaven continent would be able to harm Longao. Why did he have to do something so superfluous? There are some things you don't understand. The God Diviner smiled mysteriously. If I succeed, perhaps I'll be able to advance even further. The Five Elements Patriarch didn't continue asking. The God Diviner had clearly said that this was all for himself. What nonsense was this about the common people? Longao was sent away from the Five Elements sect. From start to finish, Sima 2 and the others didn't know that the person they were looking for was no longer in the Five Elements space or the Five Elements sect. Looking at the Five Elements sect in front of him, Longao had a helpless expression. Initially, entering the Five Elements sect would have been beneficial to his cultivation. However, in the end, he only obtained the Five Elements slaves and failed to cultivate the Five Elements reincarnation. You win some, you lose some. Longao didn't continue to dwell on this issue. Since things had already come to this point, there wasn't much meaning in continuing to stay. Just like this, Longao turned around and left. In a short while, he had already disappeared without a trace. Within the Five Elements sect, the Five Elemental space had already disappeared for a month, but the six of them didn't dare to take a step out. If the Five Elemental space really disappeared, they really didn't know what to do. Sovereign! Before the sect leader of the Water Element sect could say anything, the Five Elements space that had disappeared earlier suddenly reappeared. Looking at the entrance of the Five Elements space in front of them, the six of them were completely dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on. The six of them looked at each other, not knowing what to do. From the beginning to the end, the six of them had never thought that someone would actually be able to lure out the old ancestor and recover the Five Elements space. 3 days later. Apart from the six of them, no one else knew about the Five Elements space. The Five Elements sect had completely sealed off the news. No matter who it was, no one received any news. As for the 1,000 people, many people were speculating because sect leader Sima had personally said that he would focus on cultivating the 1,000 people. Therefore, even if the 1,000 people disappeared, no one would suspect anything. Not to mention, for the Five Elements sect, these thousands of people were practically dispensable existences. Five Elements City. Shirpatian, I have already said that the grudge between you and your second uncle has nothing to do with my Five Elements sect. Therefore, leave the Five Elements City. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Suddenly, Sima 2's tone became tough, making Shirpatian a little helpless. Master Sima. Waving his hand, without giving Shirpatian any chance to speak, Sima 2 said, Your second uncle has already left the Five Elements City. Remember, no matter who you are, if you enter the Five Elements City and cause trouble in the future, don't blame the Five Elements City for not giving face to your Wanshou sect. As soon as Sima 2 finished speaking, his figure disappeared from the Five Elements City. The 5 deputy heads were respectively the Metal Element Faction Leader, Wood Element Faction Leader, Water Element Faction Leader, Fire Element Faction Leader, and Earth Element Faction Leader. With their status and strength, not to mention Shirpatian, even if Shirpotian's father and second uncle came, they wouldn't dare to continue staying in the Five Elements City. The 5 of them didn't say anything, but their meaning was clear. Shirpotian's face became more and more gloomy. He naturally knew what Sima 2's words meant. In the end, Shirpatian chose to compromise. As the saying goes, a wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. If he continued to stay, the consequences would be unimaginable. What do you all think? I don't know. In any case, we just need to follow sect leader's instructions. Looking at the gradually disappearing figures, the 5 of them chose to leave at the same time. After leaving the Five Elements sect, Longao didn't return to the Dragon Peak. Instead, he began to roam the Martial Sky continent. His first goal was the so-called Earth ranking. In the Martial Sky continent, there were 2 rankings, the Heaven ranking and the Earth ranking. The Heaven ranking was a ranking that everyone in the Martial Sky continent could chase after. It was also the most valuable ranking in the Martial Sky continent. As long as one could enter the top 100 of the heaven ranking, one would be an all-powerful figure in the martial sky continent. The 10 Master of the 10 Directions were all super figures in the top 20 of the heaven ranking. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for young people to enter the heaven ranking. It was rumored that among the figures on the heaven list, the person with the lowest strength was still a supreme down martial artist. One could imagine how terrifying the existence of the heaven list was. As for the earth ranking, it was a ranking that anyone below the age of 40 could chase after. It was also a ranking that was prepared for young people. Many times, no one could enter the earth ranking and the heaven ranking at the same time. There were rumors that the first place of the earth ranking had already entered the heaven ranking. As for whether it was true or not, no one knew. Longao was preparing to chase after the earth ranking. That way, he could better train himself and continuously improve his strength. According to the information that Longao had obtained, the first place of the earth ranking was a black grade great emperor. After the 50th place, almost all of them were supreme gods. Because of this, Longao began to challenge. According to the rules of the earth ranking, the fastest way to enter the heaven ranking was to challenge the people on the earth ranking. If the challenge was successful, one could enter the heaven ranking directly. If the challenge wasn't successful, one would either lose the right to challenge or be killed directly. Longao calculated that with his current strength, he could probably challenge a white grade great emperor. In a short span of 10 days, Longao consecutively challenged 3 people on the earth ranking. He directly succeeded and successfully entered the heaven ranking, ranking 81st. Chapter 11:15. 81st on the earth ranking. In just a few dozen days, the earth ranking had changed. Those who received the news were all shocked. There were always people paying attention to the heaven ranking and earth ranking. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for the 2 rankings to change. Especially the heaven ranking, there would be no changes for a few years or even a dozen years. It was still the same saying, how could those who could enter the heaven ranking not have some real skills? As for the earth ranking, there would be some monstrous geniuses who would challenge those who were at the top of the earth ranking to enter the earth ranking. Black Wolf? No one knew who this Black Wolf was and how he could challenge 3 people consecutively, and be ranked 81st on the earth ranking. The 80th on the earth ranking were gold grade great emperors. With the current situation of the earth ranking, there were no divine grade great emperors in the top 50. One should know that there were strong and weak martial artists of the same level. Longao stopped challenging. In the wilderness, there was no one around. Goo 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 goo. It was unknown what kind of spiritual beast made the sound, but it was especially eerie in the wilderness. After successfully challenging the people on the earth ranking and being ranked 81st, Longao's cultivation had successfully broken through to the peak purple grade great emperor realm. He was only 1 step away from officially breaking through to the black grade great emperor realm. 10 levels of great emperor realm. From low to high, they were red grade great emperor realm, orange grade great emperor realm, yellow grade great emperor realm, green grade great emperor realm, cyan grade great emperor realm, blue grade great emperor realm, purple grade great emperor realm, black grade great emperor realm, white grade great emperor realm, and gold grade great emperor realm. Above the 10 levels of Great Emperor Realm was the titled Great Emperor Realm. Above the titled Great Emperor Realm was the so-called Demigod Realm, which was the 9 heavens of the Demigod Realm. Longao only had one thing to do now, which was to break through to the Black Grade Great Emperor Realm from the peak Purple Grade Great Emperor Realm as soon as possible. The increase in level also represented a huge increase in strength. Sitting on the ground. Sitting quietly in the wilderness, Longao absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around him and circulated the 9-cycle reincarnation technique in his body. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was the supreme cultivation technique of the Dragon Seal space. It was passed down from Long Fu to Longao. Longao attached great importance to the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique because every breakthrough was a qualitative change. He had just broken through to the 2nd cycle of reincarnation. Not only had his strength soared, but he had also gained the ability to teleport. That was indeed the case. Longao was looking forward to seeing how many divine abilities the 7 cycles of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique could produce. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was incomparably powerful. However, cultivating it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Until now, Longao had only just broken through to the 2nd cycle of reincarnation. Master, you have now reached the breakthrough point. What you need to do is to devour a large amount of power. As long as you have enough power, you can naturally break through with the help of the desolate saint body. He nodded. As for Long Fu's point, how could Longao not know about it? The sacred desolation physique was not only the number 1 cultivation sacred physique, but it was also the number 1 waste physique. Without sufficient power to supplement it, there was only one outcome for someone with such a physique. That was a tragedy. If Longao hadn't obtained the Dragon Seal space back then, he would still be a waste in Scarlet Fire Town. How could he have challenged the Earth leaderboard and established the Dragon Sect? He let out a deep sigh. It was easier said than done to devour a large amount of power. Long Fu had devoured all the remnant souls of the Divine Dragon. Longao didn't say anything because he knew that the stronger the Dragon Seal space was, the more advantageous it would be for him. As if he knew what his master was thinking, Long Fu said, "Master, I know that your situation is urgent. Therefore, I have already thought about it. In your current situation, only by entering that place can you quickly increase your strength." Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was overjoyed. Longao knew Long Fu's character very well. If he wasn't completely confident, Long Fu would never say that. Just as Long Fu said, his situation was urgent. He had to quickly increase his strength. Only then would he be able to deal with everything. "Long Fu, where is this place?" Longao couldn't wait. "Master, to tell you the truth, the old master also entered this place. It was because of this that the old master's strength had greatly increased. However, it was filled with danger. I hope that master can consider it carefully." "Old master? Long Tian?" Longao naturally knew who the old master that Long Fu was talking about was. As for danger, he wasn't afraid of danger. Otherwise, he wouldn't have entered the Sky Martial Continent alone and provoked the 10 Directions tripod. "Long Fu, speak." Long Fu smiled because he knew his master's character very well. Knowing that there was a tiger in the mountain, he still went to the mountain. This was his master. "Master, the place I want to bring you to is called the Massacre Abyss." "Massacre Abyss? What place?" "Master, according to the old master, the Massacre Abyss is filled with vicious people. Once you enter, you have to disregard life and death. Inside the Massacre Abyss, even if there is no enmity, there will still be people who will kill you. Long Fu, does the Massacre Abyss have the energy I need?" Longao wasn't a fool. If it was just danger, Long Fu wouldn't need to do this. The Sky Martial Continent was filled with danger, especially the 10 Directions tripod. He believed that the danger didn't belong to the Massacre Abyss. Since that was the case, why would he take the extra step of going to the Massacre Abyss? As expected. "Master, your guess is correct. When I followed the old master into the Massacre Abyss, I saw a mysterious energy that was even stronger than the energy of heaven and earth. As long as you can absorb it, even if it's just 3 months, I believe you will be able to break through to the titled Sovereign Realm and reach the Demigod Realm." Hearing Long Fu's words, it would be a lie to say that they weren't tempted. Longao was no exception. With such a temptation, Longao believed that he couldn't resist it and left. According to Long Fu, the Massacre Abyss was at the center of the Sky Martial Continent. The entrance was very mysterious and hidden. Not to mention others, even the 10 Directions tripod rarely knew about it. As for those who knew, they wouldn't be so bored as to enter the Massacre Abyss for no reason. Again, the Massacre Abyss was filled with danger. Everyone inside was a madman. No one wanted to enter without leaving. On the way, Bai Ling tried to persuade Longao a few times, but he had already made up his mind. He knew that the massacre abyss was an opportunity for him, a rare opportunity. No matter what happened, he had to enter the massacre abyss. Peak purple grade Great Emperor Realm. There was still a long way to go before reaching the titled Great Emperor Realm. Under normal circumstances, who knew how long it would take? However, Long Fu had already said that as long as he entered the massacre abyss and absorbed the mysterious energy, he would be able to break through within 3 months. Chapter 11:16. The Massacre Abyss. It was located in the center of the Tianwu continent. It was a barren mountain among barren mountains. Not to mention human habitation, there weren't even any flowers or plants. There were dead trees and rocks everywhere. There were even a few skeletons. Crows flew all over the sky. Caw 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 caw. The crows' caws echoed throughout the barren mountain. Even if it was Longao, he could not help but shudder when he stepped into this barren mountain. If it wasn't for Long Fu leading the way, he wouldn't have come to this place even if he was beaten to death. There was no one around, not even a ghost. Long Fu, where's the entrance? Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. Longao was more or less afraid and worried. However, since he was already here, he had to face it. Master, it's in a small cave not far from you. Nodding his head. Without any hesitation, Longao walked towards the cave. Weeds grew everywhere. Longao split the weeds with his palm and entered the cave. A pitch-black cave. Who would have thought that this was the entrance to the massacre abyss? With Long Fu's guidance, Longao quickly found the entrance. A pitch-black tunnel. If it was an ordinary person, would they dare to casually enter the tunnel? The more mysterious something was, the scarier it was. Behind the tunnel was the so-called massacre abyss. Until now, Longao still didn't know what kind of place the massacre abyss was. He only heard Long Fu's description and didn't have any sense of imagery. Taking a deep breath. Finally, Longao took a step forward and stepped into the black tunnel. There was no light at all. If an ordinary person entered the tunnel, they wouldn't be able to move an inch. However, Longao's situation was completely different. As a purple-grade Great Emperor, there was no difference between day and night. Walking in the black tunnel was like walking in the day. The black tunnel was very long. With Longao's speed, he had already walked for dozens of minutes, but he still hadn't reached the end. Even Longao was a little surprised. Before Longao could ask, Long Fu's voice came. Master, you have to be careful. Long Fu, what's wrong? What happened? Longao knew that Long Fu would not shoot arrows for no reason. Did something happen? Master, the massacre abyss is not like the outside world. Inside, there are bandits everywhere. Many people will guard the exit. If you do not hand over the treasure, you will be killed on the spot. So that was the case. Longao already knew what Long Fu meant. It was nothing more than warning him to be careful because there were already people waiting at the exit. It was just as Long Fu said, a group of murderous bandits. Longao stopped and asked, Long Fu, why don't the people of the massacre abyss dare to go out? Cauldron of 10 directions. In the following time, Longao did not continue on his journey. Instead, he listened to Long Fu talk about the slaughter abyss. The massacre abyss. No one knew where the massacre abyss came from. Many vicious people were chased by the people outside or the cauldron of 10 directions, and eventually hid in the massacre abyss. Not only that, within the massacre abyss, there were many aborigines. Similarly, no one knew where these aborigines came from. However, within the massacre abyss, experts were as common as the clouds. Even if you didn't take the initiative to provoke others, there was no telling when you would be killed. After listening, Longao rested for a while. He did not continue to dwell on this issue, and continued on his journey. About half an hour later, he did not know how far he had walked before he finally saw a glimmer of light. Longao was not the slightest bit excited. Instead, he was somewhat dignified. Because he did not know how strong the people guarding outside were. As long as they were not demigod martial artists, he could leave smoothly. But the people of the Massacre Abyss were a little different. After thinking about it, Longao finally decided to use teleportation to enter the Massacre Abyss. At the entrance of the Massacre Abyss, two men with a huge difference in height were guarding here. The thin man was more than 2 meters tall, while the fat man was only about 1.5 meters tall. The contrast between the two was too great. "Skinny guy, we've already been here for so long. Are you bored? Why don't we go into the city and see if there are any suitable targets? It's not like we can keep waiting here." Hearing this, the thin man glared fiercely. "Fatty, stop talking nonsense. If you want to leave, you can scram alone. I like to wait here." Before the fat man could speak, the thin man continued. "Who do you think you are? You want to enter the city? With your strength, you will only die if you enter. You might as well stay here. If we are lucky, we might be able to make a fortune." The fat man seemed to want to say something, but did not say it in the end. Because the fat man was very clear that what the thin man said was right. With their strength, entering the city was indeed a road to death. They might even become food for others. But waiting like this was not a solution. If no one entered for 8 to 10 years, would they continue waiting like this? The thin man and the fat man were both black-grade great emperors. In the Massacre Abyss, black-grade great emperors were nothing. Otherwise, the two of them would not be waiting here. The thin man and the fat man looked at each other. Both of their faces were filled with joy at the same time. They had already sensed footsteps coming from the tunnel. It seemed like the fish was about to take the bait. And the result? Before the two of them could figure out the situation, or even know what had happened, their vision blurred and they were sent flying with a kick. Longao's figure appeared. Before he came out, he had already sensed that there was no one around except for the two black-grade great emperors. He originally wanted to use teleportation to escape, but he chose to face them head-on. After all, it was only two black-grade great emperors. With his current strength, he could easily handle them. "You too. Big brother, please let us go." The thin man and the fat man were shocked. The two of them already knew what had happened. The people who entered the Massacre Abyss this time were stronger than them. As the saying goes, kind people are bullied, kind horses are ridden. This time, they were in big trouble. The two of them knew very well what the Massacre Abyss meant. In here, killing a person was like stepping on an ant. Even if the other party killed the two of them, they believed that no one would know. Even if they knew, they believed that no one would be nosy. This was the Massacre Abyss. Bully the kind and fear the evil. No matter who it was, they would follow this rule. The thin man and the fat man were no exception. "Follow me." From the beginning to the end, Longao did not have the intention to kill the two. The reason was simple. It was his first time in the Massacre Abyss, and he was unfamiliar with the place. If the two of them led the way or told him about the Massacre Abyss, it would be a great help to him in the Massacre Abyss. Chapter 11-17. The skinny man and the fat man stood up, trembling with fear, and slowly followed him. The two of them were scared to the extreme because they did not know whether the person in front of them would kill them or not. After walking for a while. "How long have you been in the Massacre Abyss?" "Big brother, we have been here for 20 years. 20 years? For a martial artist, 20 years was not a short time. Longao was overjoyed and asked, "Do you know anything about the Massacre Abyss?" The two of them nodded at the same time and asked back, "Big brother, what do you want to know? Let's talk about the Massacre Abyss first." At this moment, what Longao wanted to know the most was about the Massacre Abyss. The reason was simple. In the following time, he would be staying in the Massacre Abyss for a long time. As the saying goes, know thyself and know thy enemy to be victorious in every battle. If he did not even know the situation of the Massacre Abyss, then he would be like a headless fly, running around randomly. "Big brother, the Massacre Abyss is boundless, no one can walk through it once, but inside the Massacre Abyss, there is a huge city, which is the residence of many people. A city? Longao did not speak. Under normal circumstances, many people will enter the city, only those who are solitary or want to go out to cultivate. The rest, as long as they enter the massacre abyss, almost all will enter the city. So that was it. You two, tell me about the massacre in the abyss cities. The two of them were still scared because from the beginning to the end, the two of them did not know whether the young man in front of them would kill them or not. But since things had come to this point, they could only listen obediently. Big brother, the city is incomparably huge, and there are a total of 5 abyss lords. The 5 of them are in charge of the entire massacre abyss. As for the rest, there are too many, we don't know where to start. 5 abyss lords. Longao did not continue to ask. Just as the two of them said, the massacre abyss was so big that he did not know what to ask. It seemed that he had to take one step at a time. You two can get lost. Longao had decided to enter the city of the massacre abyss. Big brother, wait. Longao, who was about to leave, heard the two people shouting. He stopped and asked, "What's the matter?" "Big brother, we want to ask you for a favor. Can you bring us into the city?" Hearing the words of the two, Longao was very curious. "It's not like the two of you don't have legs. Why do you want to follow me into the city?" "Big brother, to tell you the truth, with our strength, if we enter the city alone, we will only die. Therefore, the two of us want to follow Big brother in the future. No matter if it is a mountain of blades or a sea of flames, we will listen to Big brother's orders." So that was the case. Longao thought for a moment. After all, he had only just entered the slaughter abyss and did not understand anything. If he had 2 followers by his side, it would be more or less useful. "You can follow me, but remember this. No matter what happens, don't make decisions on your own. Otherwise, I won't be merciful." "Thank you, big brother. We wouldn't dare. The fat man and the skinny man were overjoyed. Because in the slaughter abyss, they found a powerful big brother to rely on. In the future, they could sit back and relax. Even if they entered the city, they would not have to worry about being killed. Just like that. Longao led the two and left, walking towards the huge city in the distance. The huge city stood in the slaughter abyss. The entire abyss was dark and there were no 9 heavens. At first glance, there were rocks and weeds everywhere. It was like a mass grave, giving people a depressing feeling. "Big brother, we're here." After walking for a few hours, the 3 finally arrived outside the huge city. According to the 2, Longao already knew that in the entire slaughter abyss, there was only this huge city in front of them. Not everyone would enter. Many people would leave the city and cultivate in seclusion. There were also people who were afraid of being killed if they entered the city, so they could only wander outside. One had to admit that the slaughter abyss was much crueler than the outside world. Because here, the slightest carelessness could lead to being killed and falling into a state of eternal damnation. "Big brother, when we enter the city, we must be careful." "I know." How could Longao not know what the 2 meant? Before entering the slaughter abyss, Longao already knew that the slaughter abyss was full of dangers. Even if you did not provoke others, there would still be people who would come to find trouble with you. In other words, entering the city of the slaughter abyss, it was hard to say whether one would live or die. It was still the same sentence. Things had already come to this point. Even if they did not want to, they had to enter. "Let's go." Without further hesitation, Longao led the 2 and walked towards the city in front of them. In a short while, they had already entered the city. As soon as they entered the city, Longao sensed the auras of the surroundings locking onto them. They were all coldly looking at them, like wolves staring at their prey. Furthermore, Longao could clearly sense that many of the people around them were extremely powerful. Even the weakest were sovereigns. It was not that there were no low-level cultivators, but there were very few of them. It was hard to imagine just how terrifying the foundation and power of the slaughter abyss was. Longao even thought that if he could become the master of the slaughter abyss, then wouldn't he be able to contend against the 10 great powers? At that time, he would also have a place in the martial heaven continent. But it was just a thought. Longao was very clear that let alone becoming the master of the slaughter abyss, just being able to smoothly leave the slaughter abyss would be an extremely difficult matter. Big brother, you have to be careful. We've just entered the city. We'll definitely become the prey of many people. Although the two of them had already entered the slaughter abyss for 20 years, they had not stayed in the city for long. So to the city, the two of them were still newcomers. Just as the two of them had said, the three of them had just entered the city. They could become the prey at any time. They nodded. Even without the two of them reminding him, Longao was already on guard. He was very clear about what kind of place this was. The slaughter abyss was a place where strength was respected. If you were strong, everyone would be afraid of you. If you were weak, everyone would bully you. This was the reality. However, it was especially realistic in the slaughter abyss. Oh, where did this handsome little brother come from? Quick, let me see. Looking at the coquettish auntie walking over, the fatty and sister-in-law were startled. They whispered, Big brother, this person is called a hag. She's a titled sovereign. She's very smooth and slick and has many friends. She's very sinister, so big brother, you have to be careful. Big brother, this hag likes tender young men the most. She'll chop them up to make buns. The fatty didn't continue, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Chapter 11-18. Hag? Little handsome, is this your first time in the city? Such a person was heartless and unscrupulous. Of course, Longao would not care about him. However, his main purpose in entering the massacre abyss was to absorb the mysterious energy and increase his strength. As for other matters, he would avoid them as much as possible. Longao didn't want to find trouble, but he wasn't afraid of it. Moreover, this was the massacre abyss. In the massacre abyss, the more afraid you were, the more people would want to bully you. In such a place, one had to be arrogant. This way, he might be able to intimidate others. He chose to ignore it. Longao and the other two walked past the female yiksha. The surrounding people were very surprised because they knew very well what the female yiksha meant. If this was the case, wouldn't the three of them not give the female yiksha any face? There would be a good show to watch. As expected, the hag was one of the top figures in the city. No one had ever dared to disregard her like this. She said angrily, Brat, you're really arrogant. But don't worry, I like people like you. A knife hidden in a smile. The hag was a titled great emperor. Her strength and speed were obvious. In a flash, she had already blocked the three of them. You like me, but I don't like you. As a woman, please respect yourself. Longao had provoked her time and time again. Even if she was a female yiksha, she could not bear it. Ha! What an arrogant brat! The hag's face changed instantly. She said coldly, Brat, who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like this? You're courting death. Just as the female yiksha's words fell, two figures appeared out of nowhere at an extremely fast speed. The skinny and fatty were shocked. After all, the hag's strength was obvious. If they were alone, they would definitely die. The two of them were more or less stable because their big brother, Black Wolf, was in front of them. However, the hag was still a titled great emperor. It was still unknown if their big brother could fight against her. Longao was also shocked. Two black great emperors. It seemed like the female yiksha wanted to test her strength. In the end, the female yiksha did not have full confidence. Otherwise, she would be the one fighting now. Longao was not afraid of black great emperors. If it was an ordinary martial artist, even if his strength was comparable to two black great emperors, he would definitely lose in terms of speed. However, Longao's situation was completely different. With spatial teleportation, Longao instantly locked onto their positions. Solar ray attack. End the battle quickly. Longao had already thought it through. He had just stepped into the slaughter abyss, and if he did not show off his strength, there would definitely be an endless stream of trouble coming his way. Therefore, Longao had already decided that his first battle after entering the slaughter abyss was to intimidate everyone. There was a difference of one level between them, but Longao was not the least bit afraid. Longao's soul was now extremely powerful. Moreover, it had merged with the aura of heaven and earth. Even the two black great emperors could only use the soul array to attack. Ah! Before the female Yaksha could react, there were already two screams. The two who had just attacked were already sent flying back. They were like kites with a broken string, and fell heavily on the ground. Don't think that I'm easy to bully. Female Yaksha, I'm telling you clearly, if you provoke me again, I won't be merciful. One had to admit that Longao was really arrogant. However, in the slaughter abyss, this kind of arrogance was very normal. Because only powerful martial artists had the right to be arrogant. If it were the skinny and fatty, would they dare to be so arrogant? Humans were like this. The more subservient you were, the more others would want to bully you. If Longao appeared to be trembling with fear, she believed that at this moment, the female Yaksha would have already made her move. However, Longao had just defeated two people in one move, so the female Yaksha was very afraid. Before she figured out the strength of the other party, the female Yaksha would definitely not casually make a move. It was better to be safe than sorry. Looking at the figure that was gradually disappearing, the female Yaksha's face was extremely gloomy. It was as ugly as it could get. Female Yaksha, this time we've lost. Sigh. It's no wonder. He's so powerful, of course the female Yaksha wouldn't dare to attack. Discussions came from all around. Everyone was adding oil and vinegar. They couldn't wait for the female Yaksha to start a fight with the other party. Listening to the ridicule coming from all around, the female Yaksha finally couldn't take it anymore. She roared, "Brat, I don't care who you are. I'll let you know the consequences of provoking me. Big brother, we've provoked the female Yaksha. We're scared. Although the skinny and fatty didn't finish their words, the meaning of their words was very clear. Waving his hand, Longao's face was also not looking good. He coldly said, "If you're scared, you can leave now. Don't follow me." Seeing the black wolf angry, no matter if it was the skinny or fatty, they didn't dare to speak. Provoking the female Yaksha would put their lives in danger at any time. "Big brother, why don't we find a place to rest?" Nodding. Just like this, Longao and the other two found a tea shop and sat down. Inside the dragon seal space. Longao's soul entered the dragon seal space and asked straightforwardly, "Long Fu, where's the mysterious energy?" The main reason for entering the massacre abyss this time was for the mysterious energy. According to Long Fu, as long as he could devour the mysterious energy, his strength would skyrocket in just 3 months. From the purple grade Great Emperor realm, he could directly advance to the titled Great Emperor realm. As for whether he could break through to the demigod realm, it was still unknown. Long Fu also knew his master's eagerness. Without wasting any time, he said, "Master, the mysterious energy is here." Inside the tea shop. "You two, be careful. We've been targeted." Both of them were shocked. They seemed to have guessed that this would happen. Since they had provoked the female Yaksha, it would be strange if the female Yaksha didn't come after them. "Big brother, what should we do now?" The skinny and fatty clearly knew that since things had come to this point, they could only hold on tightly to their big brother. Otherwise, they would be dead without a doubt. What should they do? Since they had already entered the city, they could only take one step at a time. Longao had already guessed that there would be endless troubles in the massacre abyss this time. The female Yaksha was only the first. He believed that there would be a second, a third, a fourth, and even a fifth. Longao was more or less afraid. No matter what, the female Yaksha was still a titled Great Emperor. With his current strength, he still wasn't a match for a titled Great Emperor. However, Longao didn't plan to hide. After entering the city, other than devouring the mysterious energy, Longao had already decided to train in the massacre abyss. He hoped that he could break through to the demigod realm here. Chapter 11-19 Lady boss, what should we do now? The female boss was slapped in the face by Longao in front of everyone. How could she let this go so easily? However, Longao's strength did shock the female boss. In the end, the female boss was still afraid. Otherwise, she would have attacked long ago. Humph, I want to see how powerful this person is. She lowered her head and thought. Spread the word that this person has a peerless treasure on him. Got it. Borrow someone else's knife to kill. Without full confidence, the female boss could only choose to borrow someone else's knife to kill. Next, Longao followed Long Fu's guidance and prepared to search for the mysterious force. As for the skinny and fatty, they did not follow. After all, it was dangerous. If they did not have scruples, they would die. The skinny and fatty knew that their brother had good intentions, so they did not say anything more. The city. The 5 lords of the abyss ruled the massacre abyss together. They had always minded their own business. As for the mysterious force that Long Fu mentioned, it was in the city. It was a place called Killing Without Blinking. Killing without blinking. The meaning was very simple. Anyone who entered could kill each other. They could kill as many as they wanted. It was also a place for people to vent their anger. Longao was speechless when he knew that there was such a place. The world was really big, and there were all kinds of strange things. It gave people different ways of venting. No wonder it was called the Massacre Abyss. If it was outside, not to mention others, would the 10-direction cauldron agree? For the mysterious force, Longao had decided that whether it was a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, he had to go. Killing without blinking. It was a huge place with decent decorations. It was simple, and there were tables everywhere. It could be considered a sea of people. It seemed that there were quite a lot of people who wanted to vent their anger. As soon as Longao stepped in, he saw that it was a mess. You kill me, I kill you. There were swords everywhere. If it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to stand it. Longao did not want to kill, nor did he want to be killed. As he had said before, he had come here mainly to search for the mysterious force. However, he had already entered. Even if Longao didn't want to kill anyone, it didn't mean that others didn't want to kill him. Before Longao could stabilize himself, several figures shot towards him from all directions. Before they even arrived, their terrifying killing intent had already reached him. Trouble was coming. Of course, Longao wouldn't have the slightest hesitation and immediately started fighting. Master, I'll take you away. Before Longao could react, he found that his figure had disappeared. In the next second, he had entered a huge cave. In the middle of the cave, 9 huge stone bowls were arranged in a grid. Moreover, each of the huge stone bowls contained a different colored liquid. Longao was very sure that he had never seen such a color before. He couldn't describe it, but it was very strange and special. Could this be the mysterious power that Long Fu mentioned? Long Fu, this is the mysterious power? Master, that's right. Back then, the old master and I researched it for a very long time. However, we were unable to figure out exactly what sort of power this mysterious power was. The power within the 9 enormous stone bowls respectively represents 9 different types of power. Each of them has their own merits. Even the old master back then only absorbed 2 types of power. He nodded. Longao slowly walked towards the 9 huge stone bowls. He didn't know why, but when he looked at the 9 huge stone bowls in front of him, he felt as if they were connected by blood. Could it be that he knew these 9 huge stone bowls? No, he definitely didn't know them. Longao was completely sure of this. Before this, he had never seen these 9 huge stone bowls. If that was the case, why did he feel as if they were connected by blood when he saw them? What was going on? For a moment, the 9 stone bowls confused Longao. He didn't know what was going on. Longao didn't tell Long Fu about this. The current Longao was no longer the Longao who listened to Long Fu for everything. He had his own thoughts and knew what to say and what not to say. Longao knew in his heart what to say and what not to say. For example, he couldn't say anything about what was happening now. Bai Ling, Xiling, do you recognize the power in the 9 stone bowls? Without Longao saying anything, Xiling and Bai Ling had already sensed it. Both of them were communicating through their spiritual senses, so Long Fu didn't know what they were talking about. He also didn't know what Longao was thinking. He also didn't know what Longao wanted to do. If Long Fu learned that Longao was on guard, who knew what Long Fu would think? Big Brother Long, just now, my sister and I sensed it. We've never seen this kind of power before. However, according to my sister's guess, the liquid in the 9 bowls should be a new kind of power refined from blood. Bloodline? Hearing Bai Ling's words, Longao was startled. He was very clear that to refine a bloodline into a power that even Long Fu, Bai Ling, and Xiling couldn't sense, one had to be incredibly powerful. Other than the Heavenly Das and the God Diviner, there was no one else in the martial heaven continent capable of this. Could it be the God Diviner and the Heavenly Das? Bai Ling, can you sense the power of the bloodline's true body? I can't sense it. Longao hadn't been planning on telling the 2 Jianling about his situation. That was because it would be inconceivable. He had never seen the 9 stone bowls before, but he felt a connection to them. Who would believe him if he told them? It didn't matter if others believed him or not. In any case, Longao didn't know the details. After thinking it over, Longao decided to tell the 2 Jianling. He had no idea what was going on between him and the 9 stone bowls. And so, Longao told them what he had sensed. Long Fu still didn't know, but Xiling and Bai Ling also understood what Longao meant. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used spiritual sense transmissions. Hearing Longao's words, whether it was Xiling or Bai Ling, both of them seemed to be a little surprised. This matter was indeed a little strange. No matter what, Longao had never seen the 9 stone bowls before. They were completely unrelated things, so why did he feel that they were connected by blood? What was going on? Longao, why don't you try dripping a drop of your bloodline into the 9 stone bowls? However, I have to warn you that if you do this, it might be dangerous. It's up to you to decide what to do. Xiling's meaning was clear. They couldn't make this decision. Longao had to make it himself. Longao had also thought of this. Since he felt a connection to the 9 stone bowls, then the best method was to drip his blood into them and see what was going on. Chapter 11:20. He took a deep breath. Until now, Longao still wasn't sure what the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls was. According to Long Fu, the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls contained 9 different types of energy. It was extremely powerful. Long Tian had only swallowed 2 types of energy back then, and his strength had skyrocketed. One could imagine how powerful the liquid was. Longao was a little curious. If the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls was so powerful, why didn't Long Tian keep it and swallow it slowly for a few months, or even a year or 2? At that time, his strength would skyrocket, and he could even leap 1,000 miles. Before the blood was dripped into his veins, Longao still asked the question in his heart. Master, there's something you don't know. Long Fu sighed deeply. Of course, he knew his master's question the best. Master, you can't swallow too much of the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls. It has to be determined by your condition. If you swallow too much, the consequences will be unimaginable. I see. Longao finally knew the reason. It turned out that the condition didn't allow it. It wasn't that Long Tian didn't want to, but if he gave up such a rare opportunity, wouldn't he be a fool? Master, what are you going to do? From the beginning to the end, Long Fu didn't know what his master was going to do. This made Long Fu feel very uncomfortable. I want to try my blood and see what happens after dripping it. Master. He waved his hand. Without giving Long Fu any chance to speak, Longao said, I've made up my mind. Long Fu didn't say anything else. As for Longao, he stretched out his right hand and forced a drop of blood. Drip. The blood flowed along the stone bowl into the liquid. Longao thought that something earth-shattering would happen because of the blood connection, but the result? When the blood entered the liquid, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. There wasn't even a trace of a ripple. This made Longao very depressed. What was going on? Bailing, Xiling, it doesn't seem to work. Big Brother Long, try dripping it all into the 9 huge stone bowls. How could Longao not know what Bailing meant? Without any hesitation, Longao dripped his blood into the remaining 8 huge stone bowls. It was still calm. Just as Longao was about to take a look, the 9 huge stone bowls suddenly emitted an ear-piercing sound. Before Longao could react, the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls had already begun to churn like boiling water. Longao hastily took 3 steps back. It seemed that his blood really had something to do with the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls. Not to mention Longao, even Long Fu was similarly shocked. 9 huge stone bowls. Every single one of them shot out a beam of light. 9 different colors of light interweaved with each other, making for a very strange sight. In the next second, Longao could clearly sense that he had been enveloped by 9 strange and powerful auras. They had even cut off his connection with Long Fu, Bailing, and Xiling. He did not dare to act rashly because he did not know whether the 9 auras that had locked onto him were friends or foes. 9 streams of aura instantly entered Longao's body and went on a rampage. It was as if external enemies had come in to sweep. Longao still did not dare to act rashly. However, at this moment, Longao was shocked to find that the 9 mysterious auras had entered his body and had begun to attack his blood vessels. Lin Fan was shocked. This was not good. If his blood vessels were attacked, he could die at any time. This time, he entered the massacre abyss to improve his strength, not to court death. Just as Longao was about to counterattack, his eyes closed, and he directly fell to the ground, unconscious. If others were to know that he had fainted at this time, they would probably be shocked speechless. This was completely the rhythm of courting death. He lay quietly on the ground of the cave. Longao had no idea what was happening outside. Whether he was alive or dead, he had already handed it over. Just as Longao fainted, the 9 mysterious auras immediately withdrew. Next, the wordless book in Longao's body shot out and stopped in midair above the 9 stone bowls. It was like a king had descended and was looking down at the 9 stone bowls. If Longao was awake and saw this scene, who knew what would happen? The wordless book shot out a dazzling light. Then, a young man who looked exactly like Longao appeared. The young man looked exactly like Longao. However, the young man had a cold face and his entire body was emitting an aura of a king. Looking at the 9 stone bowls in front of him, the young man seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life, as if he had something on his mind. Time passed bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, a heavy sigh was heard. This is faster than I thought. It was difficult to make a decision. In the end, the young man made up his mind and said to himself, "What will come will come. I hope we can succeed this time. Otherwise..." At this point, the young man did not continue speaking. The young man's figure disappeared and returned to the wordless book. Then, the wordless book turned into a ray of light and disappeared into Longao's body. Traces of power entered Longao's body from the 9 huge stone bowls. Following that, a shocking scene occurred. The 9 huge stone bowls that were there just now suddenly disappeared. Peace was restored. From the beginning to the end, Long Fu, Xiling, and Bailing did not see the young man's appearance and the disappearance of the 9 stone bowls. They were separated by the terrifying aura. One could imagine how powerful the young man in the wordless book was. Long Fu, Xiling, and Bailing's figures all appeared. The 3 of them looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Although they did not know what had just happened, the 3 of them knew very well that the disappearance of the 9 stone bowls must have something to do with Longao. Things are not simple. It seems that Longao's bloodline is a little. Xiling did not continue because she did not know how to describe Longao's bloodline. It was too powerful and too strange. I also guessed that Master's bloodline was not simple, but I never thought that it would be so powerful that it could forcibly absorb the liquid in the 9 stone bowls. Aye. Long Fu also looked like he wanted to say something but stopped because even he did not know that Longao's bloodline was so strange and powerful. Sister, is Brother Long all right? In Bai Ling's heart, it did not matter whether Longao's bloodline was strange or powerful, as long as Longao was fine. This was Bai Ling's character. She was kind beyond words. Moreover, Bai Ling had already started to like Longao. At this moment, Bai Ling would rather have something happen to herself than let anything happen to Longao. Xiling sighed. How could she not know what her sister was thinking? Chapter 11:21. I don't know. Even her sister didn't know. Bai Ling was very worried. After an unknown amount of time, Longao slowly woke up. Looking at the 3 figures in front of him, Longao was very surprised. He didn't know why he had fainted out of nowhere. What happened? Before Longao could finish his sentence, his expression changed abruptly. His face was filled with disbelief. This was because the 9 huge stone bowls in front of him had disappeared without a trace. Bai Ling, what happened? Bai Ling shook her head helplessly and said, I don't know either. You don't know? At this moment, Xiling said, Longao, when you dripped your blood into the 9 huge stone bowls, 9 terrifying forces suddenly shot out and forcibly cut us off. Therefore, we don't know what happened next. Looking at Long Fu and Xiling standing together, Longao was even more surprised. However, under such circumstances, he could only focus on the 9 huge stone bowls. Why did they suddenly disappear? Ah? Brother Long, what happened to you? Hearing Longao's sudden roar, everyone was shocked. They didn't know what had happened to Longao. Gold Grade Great Emperor realm? How did his cultivation reach the Gold Grade Great Emperor realm? Feeling the powerful force coming from his body, Longao was a little dumbfounded. Because his cultivation was only at the Purple Grade Great Emperor realm. How did he break through from the Purple Grade Great Emperor realm to the peak of the Gold Grade Great Emperor realm in just a few hours? He was only 1 step away from officially becoming a titled Great Emperor. Due to the sudden disappearance of the 9 huge stone bowls, everyone, including Longao, didn't pay attention to it. Now, hearing Longao's surprised voice, the 3 of them could already sense the changes in Longao's body. In such a short time, he had increased by 2 levels. What did this mean? Even the 3 of them had no idea what was going on. Master, it seems like your opportunity has come. If I'm not mistaken, the reason why your cultivation base could break through from the Purple Grade Great Emperor realm to the Gold Grade Great Emperor realm in such a short time is because of the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls. He nodded. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao had already guessed what had happened. Did he absorb the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls? If he hadn't seen Xiling and Bai Ling nod their heads, Longao wouldn't have been able to confirm his suspicions. He was so shocked that he didn't know what had just happened. Why had he absorbed the liquid from the 9 giant stone bowls for no reason? What should I do now? Master, we can only take 1 step at a time. But now, it seems that the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls is very beneficial to you. There would definitely be benefits, and they would be huge. Being able to break through from the Purple Grade Great Emperor realm to the peak of the Gold Grade Great Emperor realm in an instant meant that he had obtained great benefits. Brother Long, the bloodline in your body. Seeing Bai Ling's hesitant look, Longao asked curiously. Bai Ling, what's wrong? Just as Bai Ling was about to speak, Xiling waved his hand and said, Longao, the bloodline in your body isn't simple. Your bloodline forcefully cut us off just now. So, we don't know what happened just now. Regarding this point, Longao had already thought of it. Longao had never been clear about his own bloodline. He only knew one thing, and that was that his bloodline was forcefully sealed. As for who sealed it, it was still unknown. Seeing that Longao didn't speak, Long Fu shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Even he didn't know what had happened. He could only return to the dragon seal space. Longao, you. Xiling didn't finish his words. He pulled Bai Ling's hand and turned into two streams of flowing light, disappearing from the cave. Only Longao was left in the huge cave. It was empty. The 9 huge stone bowls had disappeared. From the beginning to the end, no one told him what had happened. As for him, he had been unconscious for so long. It was even more impossible for him to know what had happened. He didn't continue to dwell on it. No matter what, his cultivation had increased tremendously after entering the cave. If it was any other time, it wouldn't be easy to break through from the purple grade Great Emperor realm to the gold grade Great Emperor realm. It would be a lie if he said he wasn't excited. Longao was no exception. His cultivation had successfully broken through, and the 9 huge stone bowls had disappeared. There wasn't much meaning in staying here. As for the bloodline, just as Long Fu had said, he would take it one step at a time. With the help of Long Fu's power, Longao's figure disappeared from the cave and reappeared in the massacre abyss. Looking at the corpses everywhere, and everyone fighting crazily, Longao shook his head helplessly. The massacre abyss, from a certain perspective, was not a bad place. Here you could release yourself to your heart's content. As long as you had the strength, you could do whatever you wanted. Even if you died, it would be a crazy death. Longao didn't stay any longer. He didn't have much time to waste here. If there was a day when he wanted to vent, this was indeed the best place. Longao had just left the massacre abyss when he sensed that someone had locked onto his position. Without guessing, he already knew who was looking for trouble. The female Yiksha. If it was the previous Longao, he would more or less be afraid of the female Yiksha. No matter what, the female Yiksha's strength was there for all to see. A titled Great Emperor wasn't someone to be trifled with. But now, the situation was completely different. His cultivation had successfully broken through from the purple grade Great Emperor realm to the gold grade Great Emperor realm. Even if he were to face a titled Great Emperor martial artist, Longao had full confidence that he could kill a titled Great Emperor martial artist with his current strength. Since things had already developed to this point, Longao didn't want to drag things out any longer. Otherwise, was someone locking onto him, who knew how much trouble it would bring to him. Female Yiksha, since you're here, why don't you come out and meet me? Kid, you're really to my liking. The female Yiksha walked out with a cold smile. Beside the female Yiksha was a burly middle-aged man. It wasn't clear if the burly middle-aged man did it on purpose, but his body emitted a powerful aura that lingered for a long time. Longao was shocked because he could clearly sense that the burly middle-aged man beside the female Yiksha was a demigod. With his current strength, such an expert wasn't easy to deal with. Kid, are you scared? The female Yiksha smiled coquettishly and purposely played with the burly man's arm. The two of them looked like a cheating couple. I'm scared? Longao sneered. His face was filled with disdain and contempt. In the end, the female Yiksha thought that he was easy to bully and didn't give her face, so she didn't let him go. Chapter 11:22. Brat, do you not know how to spell the word death? The burly man's face was cold. He didn't take the other party seriously at all. Longao purposely released his aura. Because of this, both the female Yiksha and the burly man looked down on him. A gold-grade Great Emperor martial artist. Such a martial artist was just a piece of sh*t to the two of them. If they wanted to deal with him, it would be a matter of minutes. Who are you? Hao Dachuan. Get lost. Hao Dachuan and the female Yiksha never thought that the other party would suddenly say such a thing. Their faces were instantly enraged. Killing intent shot out in all directions and directly enveloped Longao. Brother Hao, there's no need to use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. Nodding, Hao Dachuan took 3 steps back. Brat. Before the female Yiksha could speak, Longao dashed out. Before he arrived, his terrifying aura had already suppressed them. Aura of heaven and earth! Feeling the powerful aura released by the other party, the two of them shouted in fear. They knew very well what the aura of heaven and earth meant. Could it be that the other party was a Nirvana martial artist? Impossible, this was completely impossible. The female Yiksha was a titled Great Emperor martial artist. Her realm was higher than Longao's. However, the aura of heaven and earth that Longao released disturbed the female Yiksha's state of mind. Once a martial artist's state of mind was disturbed, their strength would be reduced. Moreover, the female Yiksha was fighting with Longao. Unlike other martial artists, Longao wanted to end the battle quickly and was prepared to kill in one hit. Longao knew clearly that if he couldn't kill in one hit, it would give the burly man a chance. No matter what, Hao Duchuan was a demigod martial artist. It wouldn't be easy to defeat him. Ninth Heaven of Demigod Realm. According to the classification of realms, the order of strength from lowest to highest was First Heaven Demigod Realm, Second Heaven Demigod Realm, Third Heaven Demigod Realm, Fourth Heaven Demigod Realm, Fifth Heaven Demigod Realm, Sixth Heaven Demigod Realm, Seventh Heaven Demigod Realm, Eighth Heaven Demigod Realm, and Ninth Heaven Demigod Realm. Above the Ninth Heaven Demigod Realm was the true Supreme Tao Realm. The sword chi merged into his fists. Longao and the female Yiksha's fists fiercely collided, sparks flew everywhere. Under normal circumstances, gold-grade Great Emperors were no match for titled Great Emperors. However, Longao's situation was completely different. With a single punch, the female Yiksha's body was sent flying. Like a kite with a broken string, the female Yiksha smashed him to death with a single punch. The hag was dead. Longao did not hold back at all in this punch. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for Longao to kill the female Yiksha with one punch. In such a situation, Longao first released the aura of heaven and earth, causing the female Yiksha's mental state to become chaotic. With the help of this, Longao merged the sword Dao into his fists. With luck and strength, he smashed the female Yiksha to death with one punch. The hag was dead. Looking at the corpse on the ground, Hao Duchuan was shocked. "Black Wolf, you?" he snorted coldly. Without giving Hao Duchuan any chance to speak, Longao sneered and said, "If you want to fight, then fight. If not, scram." One had to admit that Longao was very arrogant. Even if the person standing in front of him was a demigod, he still did not give a damn. If this matter were to spread out, would anyone believe it? A gold-grade Great Emperor would dare to provoke a demigod unless his brain was flooded with water. The more confident and arrogant Black Wolf was, the more uncertain Hao Duchuan was. Could it be that the other party was really fearless? Moreover, He Lang had just killed the female Yiksha with a single punch. His strength was clear for all to see. Hao Duchuan knew that even he himself wouldn't be able to kill a titled Great Emperor with a single punch. The strength of the female Yiksha was there for all to see. "Black Wolf, do you know the consequences of killing the female Yiksha?" Longao did not speak. His face was filled with disdain and disdain. So what if he was a demigod? If he was a demigod, not to mention a gold-grade Great Emperor, even if the opponent was a divine-grade Great Emperor, he would still fight. "Black Wolf, it seems that you still don't know about the Massacre Abyss." "Nonsense." Hao Duchuan did not seem to be angry at all. He sneered and said, "The Massacre Abyss has 5 Abyss Masters. The Eastern Abyss Master has 4 Heavenly Kings under him. The female Yiksha is the Western Heavenly King's mistress." Although Hao Duchuan did not finish his words, the meaning in his words was very clear. 4 Heavenly Kings? Longao was not very clear about the matters of the Massacre Abyss. He only knew that there were 5 Abyss Masters in the Massacre Abyss, and they were in charge of it together. Although he did not know, Longao was very clear that the 4 Heavenly Kings under the Abyss Master must be divine-grade Great Emperors. If that was the case, it would be very troublesome. Seeing that Black Wolf did not speak, Hao Duchuan thought that the other party was afraid. When he was about to continue talking nonsense, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. Just like that, he disappeared into thin air. What on earth happened? Hao Dachuan did not know how the other party did it, and how he could disappear without a trace. If he did not see it with his own eyes, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. A mere gold-grade great emperor could not only kill the female yaksha with one punch, but also disappear without a trace. From the beginning to the end, Hao Dachuan never thought that the other party would dare to take the initiative to attack. Even if the other party could kill the female yaksha with one punch, a gold-grade great emperor was still a gold-grade great emperor. The gap between him and a demigod was too big. They were not on the same level at all. Could it be that the other party really had the strength to deal with him? The aura of heaven and earth merged into the sword aura, enveloping Hao Dachuan with absolute suppression. Before Hao Dachuan could react, Longao had already appeared behind him. Without any warning, he threw out a punch. The fist force was like a rolling sea that could topple mountains and overturn seas. He was startled. A demigod was a demigod after all. Once one's cultivation broke through to the demigod realm, their soul would slowly transform into a divine soul. However, there were some differences between the demigod realm and the divine path. In the demigod realm, one's divine soul would not completely transform, which was the so-called half-spirit and half-divine soul. Even so, Hao Dachuan's senses were far beyond a great emperor's. He clearly knew how terrifying the other party's punch was. The previous example was a good example. Even Hao Dachuan did not dare to meet force with force. He hastily dodged. Longao's speed was too fast. In addition, Hao Dachuan was a little slow. Although he dodged, he was still swept to the side. Cold sweat poured down. Hao Dachuan let out a long sigh of relief and said impatiently, "Wait, Black Wolf, there is no life or death grudge between you and me. There is no need for things to escalate to this stage. I, Hao Dachuan, will not care about the grudge between you and the female yaksha. There is no need for us to be enemies. Friends, your sister. P.S. The 8th chapter has been delivered. 9 chapters have erupted today. The last chapter will be updated later. Everyone, please count your votes." Chapter 11:23. Not an enemy, but a friend. If you don't remove the roots, it will grow again when the spring breeze blows. Longao wouldn't find any trouble for himself. Hao Dachuan didn't look like a good person at first glance. If he didn't fight, he would probably have endless troubles in the future. A dragon roar sounded. Before Hao Dachuan could react, a giant dragon shadow had appeared behind Longao. Innate ability, Dragon Roar. In the Massacre Abyss, even if he used his innate ability, what could he do? The flow of the surrounding space changed abruptly, and even his body was locked. This made Hao Dachuan shocked. He didn't dare to be careless. Hao Dachuan channeled all the strength in his body and slammed into the lock. A demigod martial artist was indeed a demigod martial artist. With Hao Dachuan's strength, he couldn't even lock on for 2 seconds. With a swoosh, Hao Dachuan had disappeared without a trace. He ran really fast. 1 dead and 1 escaped. In this battle, Longao could be said to have won a complete victory. A gold-grade Great Emperor martial artist not only killed a titled Great Emperor martial artist, but also scared away a demigod martial artist. Such a thing seemed to have never happened since ancient times. The Massacre Abyss was ruled by 5 Abyss Lords. There were 4 Heavenly Kings under the East Abyss Lord. They were the Eastern Heavenly King, Western Heavenly King, Southern Heavenly King, and Northern Heavenly King. Among the 4 Heavenly Kings, the Western Heavenly King might not be the strongest, but he was the most insidious one. Everyone in the Massacre Abyss knew that the female yaksha had once slept with the Western Sky King. It could be considered a one-night stand. Because of this, although the female yaksha's strength was not very strong, she was able to do well in the city. Hao Dachuan also helped the female yaksha in order to flatter the Western Heavenly King. East of the Massacre Abyss City, Western Heavenly King's residence. What did you say? Hearing Hao Dachuan's words, the Western Heavenly King's face instantly turned gloomy because everyone in the massacre abyss knew that he had slept with the female Yiksha for a night. Heavenly King, I've investigated clearly. Black Wolf just entered the massacre abyss. Although he's not strong, he's still capable. Even I can't kill him. A gold-grade great emperor martial artist killed the female Yiksha and forced Hao Dachuan to retreat. Hearing this, the Western Heavenly King was a little surprised. According to what you said, this child should be a disciple of a Long family. Long family, one of the 10 pillars of the Sky Martial Continent. Long family's fame was too great. Even in the Slaughter Abyss, everyone knew about them. That was especially true of the Long family's innate divine abilities. They were very famous in the Martial Heaven continent. Hao Dachuan nodded. He had already guessed this. If they were outside, they might be afraid of Long family. But in the Slaughter Abyss, Heavenly King, when Black Wolf fought with me, he could disappear in an instant. If I'm not mistaken, I'm guessing that he must have a spatial divine item on him. There was a loud thump. Hearing Hao Dachuan's words, the West Heaven King stood up directly because he knew very well what a spatial artifact meant. Among the various types of divine artifacts, spatial divine artifacts were the most powerful. Once one had a spatial divine artifact, not to mention fighting someone of the same level, even challenging someone of a higher level wasn't impossible. Black Wolf could use a spatial divine artifact to kill an enemy of a higher level. This in itself showed how powerful the spatial divine artifact in Black Wolf's hand was. It would be a lie to say that he didn't want to get it. Even the West Heaven King was no exception. If it was just a hag, it was still unknown whether the West Heaven King would take action. Because the West Heaven King's identity was there. If he condescended to deal with a person who had just stepped into the Slaughter Abyss, others would definitely say that he was bullying the weak. However, Black Wolf had a spatial divine artifact and other secrets. The West Heaven King was ready to take action to see what the other party's background was. Dachuan, where is he? Hearing the West Heaven King's words, Hao Dachuan was overjoyed. He was not a fool. He knew what the West Heaven King meant. After all, the West Heaven King didn't take action for the hag, but for temptation and greed. Heavenly King, I have sent someone to lock onto Black Wolf's position. He can't fly. He nodded. The West Heaven King thought for a moment and said, My lord has something to do with me. I have no time to spare. How about this? I will send 2 Supreme Dao warriors to go with you to catch this person. Dachuan will live up to your expectations. Hao Dachuan was full of confidence. Even if Black Wolf killed the hag and repelled him with the help of a spatial divine artifact, a great emperor was still a great emperor. It was impossible for him to compete with a Supreme Dao warrior. With a wave of his hand, the West Heaven King's figure disappeared. Hao Dachuan left the Heavenly King's residence with 2 Supreme Dao warriors, Fan Hui and Lu Chen. Both of them were Void God Realm warriors. It was more than enough to deal with a little Great Emperor Realm warrior. Fan Hui and Lu Chen's faces were filled with displeasure. As martial artists of the Supreme Dao, both their status and strength were clearly displayed. But at this moment, the Heavenly King asked the 2 of them to deal with a little Great Emperor Realm warrior. Moreover, the 2 of them had to join forces. Not to mention that it was a waste of talent. If this matter was spread out, where would their face go? Where would the Heavenly King's face go? Even if they were unhappy and unwilling, the Heavenly King had already given the order. The 2 of them were very clear that they had to go whether they wanted to or not. My lords, you must be careful. Although Black Wolf's strength is not very good, he has a very powerful divine ability. He even has a spatial divine artifact. Even I am no match for him. Humph, defeating you is easy. Don't talk nonsense with us. Fan Hui did not say anything nice. In the eyes of the 2 of them, they did not put Black Wolf in their eyes at all. They also did not put Hao Dachuan in their eyes. The 2 of them looked high and mighty, which made Hao Dachuan's balls ache. Similarly, even if Hao Dachuan was angry and unhappy, he did not dare to say anything. Whether it was status or strength, he was not on par with the two of them. In other words, if the two of them wanted to kill him, it would be a matter of minutes. In this way, Hao Dachuan left the Heavenly King's mansion with the two supreme Dao warriors and walked towards the center of the city. After killing the female Yaksha, Longao's reputation suddenly increased. Everyone who received the news was shocked. They did not know whether Black Wolf's brain was damaged or not. The female Yaksha was not very good. If the Western Heavenly King wanted to find trouble, then it would be really troublesome. If it was an ordinary person, it would be a different matter whether he cared about a woman who had a one-night stand or not. However, the other party was the Western Heavenly King. As the saying goes, before you beat a dog, you have to look at its master. If the Western Heavenly King was not willing, then wouldn't Black Wolf be dead for sure? Many people wanted to meet this He Lang. The slaughtering abyss was a mystical place. With regards to Longao's arrogance and recklessness, not only did no one despise him, many people were instead praising him. Chapter 11:24. Killing the Female Demon. Scaring Hao Dachuan away. Longao didn't just sit there and wait for his death. He wanted to know about the relationship between the female demon and the Western Sky King. If he didn't ask, he wouldn't know. Longao thought that the female demon and the Western Sky King were old friends. He didn't expect that the female demon and the Western Sky King were just having a one-night stand. Their relationship was the so-called adulterous couple. It was still unknown whether the Western Sky King would take action. Longao knew clearly that for someone of the Western Sky King's status, he had too many one-night stands. If he was biased towards everyone, the Western Sky King would die from exhaustion. If it was an ordinary person who got what they wanted, they would definitely choose to leave the massacre abyss. But what about Longao? Longao entered the massacre abyss mainly to increase his strength and strengthen himself. That was why Longao didn't expect things to go so smoothly. His cultivation base broke through smoothly from the purple grade Great Emperor realm to the peak of the gold grade Great Emperor realm. It was a qualitative leap. Even so, Longao didn't leave the massacre abyss immediately. The reason was simple. Longao was prepared to stay in the massacre abyss and continue to train. He hoped to break through with the help of the massacre abyss. It would be best if he could break through to the titled Great Emperor realm from the gold grade Great Emperor realm. It would be even better if he could break through to the demigod realm. There were dangerous people everywhere in the massacre abyss. Just because you don't provoke others, doesn't mean no one will provoke you. As soon as he stepped into the tea shop, someone came looking for trouble. Since entering the massacre abyss, Longao didn't have the slightest bit of courtesy. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll kill them, no matter who they are. Longao was clear about the situation in the massacre abyss. Don't be too careful here. Once you do, the consequences would be unimaginable. By then, everyone would want to kill you. Gotcha. In the tea shop, Longao didn't have the slightest bit of courtesy. He killed the other party with a palm strike and sat down to drink his tea. Seeing this, the surrounding people fell silent. It seemed like the other party was a ruthless person. Kind people are bullied, kind horses are ridden. Sirs, Black Wolf is inside. Outside the tea shop, Hao Dachuan brought along two supreme Dao martial artists, and already rushed over smoothly. He sneered endlessly in his heart. This was not for the sake of the female Yaksha, but for himself. As a demigod cultivator, he was considered a top character in the massacre abyss. Yet he had been forced back by a mere great emperor cultivator. If news of this were to spread, where would his face go? Face was still a small issue. If this matter were to spread, there would probably be people coming to cause trouble. It was precisely because of this that Hao Dachuan was prepared to borrow the power of the Western Heaven King to kill Black Wolf. Fang Hui and Lu Qin nodded their heads. From the beginning to the end, the two of them had looked down on each other. Their faces were filled with contempt and disdain. After all, the difference between a gold-grade great emperor and a supreme Dao martial artist was like heaven and earth. It could be said that the difference between the two was too great. They were not on the same level at all. Fang Hui and Lu Qin looked at each other. Lu Qin asked, "Do you want to do it or should I?" Lu Chen's meaning was very simple. It would be too degrading if the two of them had to join forces to deal with a gold-grade great emperor cultivator. Even if they could capture this person, they would still look down on them. If news of two supreme Dao martial artists dealing with a gold-grade great emperor cultivator were to spread, it would be a great loss of face for them. "You do it!" Lu Qin nodded his head and led Hao Dachuan into the tea shop. Looking around, he immediately saw Black Wolf sitting by the window. "Black Wolf, long time no see. How have you been?" Seeing Hao Dachuan enter the tea shop and bring a divine Dao martial artist over, Longao was somewhat surprised in his heart. Without guessing at all, he practically already knew what the origin of this divine Dao martial artist that Hao Dachuan brought along was. Just a defeated opponent. The Western Heaven King. Longao never thought that the Western Heaven King would really intervene in this matter. It seemed like the relationship between the Western Heaven King and the female Yiksha was not simple. Otherwise, the Western Heaven King would not be so bored as to send a supreme Dao martial artist to deal with him. A supreme Dao martial artist. Longao was more or less afraid. With his current strength, it was already difficult for him to defeat a demigod martial artist, let alone a supreme Dao martial artist. It was almost impossible. Defeated opponent? With just you? With a backer, Hao Dachuan was of course not afraid of the opponent. He did not continue to talk nonsense and left the battlefield to Lu Qin. No matter what, he still needed to rely on Lu Qin to defeat the opponent. "You are Black Wolf? Asking when you already know the answer? Nonsense." Hearing Black Wolf's words, Hao Dachuan was shocked. He never thought that Black Wolf would dare to act like this in the face of a supreme Dao martial artist. He was simply courting death. There were only two reasons why Black Wolf dared to act like this. Firstly, Black Wolf had nothing to fear and was not afraid of Lu Qin. Secondly, Black Wolf pretended not to be afraid, but he was actually very worried. The first reason was almost impossible. Ha! Hearing Black Wolf's words, Lu Qin laughed maniacally as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. His face was filled with disdain and contempt. In the entire tea shop, there were only 3 people left. The rest had disappeared without a trace. Even in the massacre abyss, a supreme Dao martial artist was an expert among experts. Moreover, Lu Qin was in the massacre abyss. Everyone knew that Lu Qin was a subordinate of the Western Sky King. No one was willing to provoke one of the 4 Sky Kings. "Black Wolf, follow me obediently. Otherwise, I will kill you without mercy." Lu Qin didn't put Longao in his eyes at all. Even if the other party's ability was strong and he had a spatial artifact, an Emperor Realm expert was still an Emperor Realm expert. Even if he could defeat a half-god Realm expert, wanting to defeat Lu Qin was like trying to smash an egg against a rock. Would Longao agree? Lu Qin snorted coldly. "With just you?" Longao's figure suddenly disappeared after his voice sounded. Upon seeing this situation, forget about Hao Dachuan, even Lu Qin's expression changed. This was because even Lu Qin was unable to understand just how the other party had done it. "Sir, be careful." With Hao Dachuan beside him, even if Lu Qin was afraid, he could only act like he did not care. The aura of his spirit spread out in all directions, trying to lock onto the opponent's figure. The next moment, the dragon's breath appeared. Before the two of them could react, the dragon's breath had already enveloped them. Divine dragon's breath. Sensing this powerful dragon's breath, both Hao Dachuan and Lu Qin's expressions changed abruptly. Their faces were filled with disbelief because they could clearly sense how powerful this dragon's breath was. Hao Dachuan and Lu Qin did not dare to stay any longer. They immediately turned around and left. However, it was too late. Since Longao had already released the divine dragon's corpse demon, he had decided to make them stay here forever. Chapter 11:25 Divine Dragon Corpse Slave. When Longao left the Dragon Peak this time, he brought out a total of stone divine dragon corpse slaves in case of emergency. If it was outside, Longao would not casually use the divine dragon corpse slaves. After all, if the Long family knew about this, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, in the massacre abyss, Longao's fear was obviously less. Moreover, the person that Hao Duchuan brought this time was a genuine supreme Dao martial artist. With his own strength, it would be a fool's dream to think that he could contend against a supreme Dao martial artist. As such, Longao was prepared to use the divine dragon corpse slaves to kill the supreme Dao martial artist and Hao Duchuan. 2 divine dragon corpse slaves appeared. Without giving the 2 any chance, they devoured them directly. 1 against 2, Lu Qin was no match for the 2 divine dragon corpse slaves. Outside the tea shop, the 2 had entered for 2 hours, but there was still no news. Fan Hui had no idea what was going on. Under normal circumstances, with Lu Qin's strength, it would be a matter of minutes to deal with a mere gold-grade great emperor martial artist. It shouldn't be. A bad premonition arose spontaneously. Before Fang Hui could enter the tea shop, the 2 corpses had already flown out of the tea shop. Fang Hui was shocked. Before Fang Hui could react, he attacked and hit the 2 corpses away. His face instantly turned gloomy, and his heart was like a huge wave. Black Wolf, come out if you have the ability! Fang Hui was already prepared to leave at any time. After all, the other party was able to kill Lu Qin and Hao Duchuan, which proved his strength. Fang Hui was clear about Lu Qin's strength, which was about the same as his. Since Black Wolf could kill Lu Qin, he could also kill him. Was it worth it if he were to die for a hag? Longao slowly walked out of the tea shop and looked coldly at the supreme Dao martial artist in front of him. Without guessing, he already knew who the other party was. Who are you? Black Wolf, you dared to kill the people of the Heavenly King residence. You are really reckless. Fang Hui waved his hand. Without giving the other party any chance to finish, Longao had already guessed what the other party was going to say. Longao coldly smiled and said, If you want to fight, then fight. If not, then scram. Without waiting for Fang Hui to speak, Longao continued, I believe that you don't wish for the 2 of them to die here either. Fang Hui's expression became increasingly gloomy because he did not have the slightest bit of confidence that he could defeat his opponent. Hey Lang, the mountains will not change, and the rivers will flow forever. We will meet again. You want to leave just like that? Hearing Black Wolf's words, Fang Hui's anger erupted like a volcano. If it weren't for the previous example, he would have attacked long ago. Under normal circumstances, for a great emperor martial artist to want to kill a divine Dao martial artist, it was practically something like a dream. Fan Hui was almost certain that the other party was a gold-grade great emperor martial artist. It seemed like Black Wolf must have used some other means to kill Lu Qin and the other man. Even so, Fan Hui was still not completely confident. Black Wolf, what do you want? Don't worry, I won't kill you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be standing here now. Fan Hui did not speak because he did not know what the other party wanted to do. He could only take one step at a time. If there was really no other way, it seemed like he could only attack. In fact, Fan Hui did not know that Longao had no intention of attacking from the beginning to the end. This was because the situation inside and outside the tea shop was completely different. If he used the divine dragon corpse slave here, it would be very troublesome. Go back and tell the Western Sky King that the grudge between me and that hag has nothing to do with him. If he wants to find trouble, I'll be there any time. Scram. Scram. If it was an ordinary person, would they dare to speak to a divine Dao martial artist like that? If there weren't any previous examples, Fan Hui would have attacked long ago. After giving a cold stare, Fan Hui turned and left. In a short while, he had disappeared without a trace. The news of Black Wolf killing Lu Chen had spread throughout the city in a short while. With Lu Chen's identity and strength, could a mere gold-grade great emperor martial artist do it? No one would believe it, but the facts were right in front of them. Lu Chen's identity was not simple. He was one of the 4 heavenly kings, the subordinate of the Western Sky King. Black Wolf killed Lu Chen so openly. Wasn't he not giving face to the Western Sky King? Black Wolf was doomed. No matter how powerful Black Wolf was, it was impossible for him to compete with the Western Sky King. As everyone knew, the 4 heavenly kings under the Eastern Abyss Master were all supreme divine Dao martial artists. Ordinary people would not dare to provoke them in the city. As for Black Wolf's identity, it had been found out. He was just a person who had just stepped into the massacre abyss. Was he out of his mind, or was he reckless to provoke the Western Sky King? The recent topics in the massacre abyss were all about Black Wolf and the Western Sky King. Everyone was looking forward to seeing how the Western Sky King was going to deal with Black Wolf. "How's the thing I asked you to do?" Longao found the fat man and the thin man and asked straightforwardly. The fat man nodded and said with a smile, "During this time, the 2 of us didn't stop at all and finally bought a detached courtyard. The place is not very big. Big brother, you know it." Longao waved his hand and stopped the 2 of them. Longao was very clear about the situation in the massacre abyss. It was almost impossible to buy a huge house in the city. At the very least, it was not something that the 2 of them could do. It was already a good thing that the fat man and the thin man could buy a detached courtyard. Next, Longao followed the 2 to the so-called detached courtyard. After all, the location was remote. It was not a good place at first glance, but there were a lot of people around. "Big brother, according to the city rules, as long as we register to buy a detached courtyard, no one can take it away. However, if someone wants to come and make trouble, the 5 Abyss Masters will not ask much." After entering the courtyard, Longao looked around and discovered that this courtyard was indeed very lousy. However, to be able to obtain a courtyard in such a short period of time was already not a simple matter. "Big brother, there's something. I don't know if we should ask." "Say it." "Big brother, we heard that you killed Lu Chen and Hao Dachuan. Is this true?" So it was about this. Since things had come to this point, Longao did not hide anything. He nodded and said, "That's right." Although the 2 of them were very surprised by their big brother's strength, they were more or less very worried. No matter what, the backer behind Lu Chen was the Western Sky King. They knew what the consequences would be if they provoked the Western Sky King. Without asking or guessing, Longao already knew what the 2 were thinking. He said, "Do you know the Western Sky King?" "Big brother, we know a little about him. Do you want to know?" Chapter 11:26. Tell me about it. What does Big Brother want? The fat man and the thin man had a feeling that the big brother in front of them seemed to be provoking the Western Sky King. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Big brother is a bit too strong. The 2 were more or less looking forward to it. If Big Brother was really stronger than the Western Sky King, then he would have a place in the city. This was not necessarily a bad thing for them. "Big brother, the 4 heavenly kings are all subordinates of the Eastern Abyss Lord. According to the rumors, the 4 heavenly kings are all Supreme Divine Path martial artists." Supreme Divine Path? Longao's heart sank. He had always guessed that the 4 heavenly kings should be Supreme Divine Path martial artists, which was to say, Divine Realm martial artists. But he never thought that the 4 heavenly kings were Supreme Divine Path martial artists. Supreme Divine Path and Supreme Divine Path were 2 different concepts. "Big brother, you killed Lu Chen. If there is no accident, the Western Sky King will definitely not let this go. How could Longao not know what the fat man said? Not to mention whether the Western Sky King valued Lucian or not, just a matter of face, he believed that the Western Sky King would not let this go. In the Western Sky King's residence. In the main hall. After listening to Fan Hui's report, the Western Sky King's face was gloomy to the extreme. It was as ugly as it could be. Black Wolf was completely provoking him. If he didn't do anything, once this matter spread out, where would his face go? Heavenly King, what should we do now? Have you found out Black Wolf's identity? How could Fan Hui not know what the Western Sky King meant? Heavenly King, I can assert that Black Wolf's identity is very simple. He is just a disciple of a Long family. Maybe he has a powerful spatial artifact, but his strength is only a gold-grade Great Emperor martial artist. However, Black Wolf is not afraid of my Heavenly King residence. It seems that he has something to rely on. Say it. Fan Hui thought for a moment, and finally said, Heavenly King, there are 5 Abyss Lords in the Massacre Abyss. I guess Black Wolf is under the command of another Abyss Lord. Otherwise, Black Wolf alone doesn't seem to dare to do this. The West Heavenly King did not speak because he had almost understood what Fan Hui meant. These words were not without reason. It was impossible for He Lang to be so arrogant as to casually provoke him, unless He Lang had a backer. Just as Fan Hui had said, there were 5 Abyss Lords in the Massacre Abyss. Heavenly King, are we going to deal with Black Wolf now? Kill! The West Heavenly King said coldly. I don't care who the other party is. If he dares to challenge my Heavenly King mansion, I will kill him without mercy. Heavenly King, I'll make the arrangements now. He waved his hand. The West Heaven King sneered and said, I'll meet this person in person. Fan Hui was shocked when he heard the Heavenly King's words. He never thought that the Western Heavenly King would personally take action for a Black Wolf. It was obvious that the Western Heavenly King valued this person very much. Since the West Heaven King had already made up his mind, Fan Hui did not dare to say anything more. In the courtyard, Fatty and Skinny were no longer around. Longao sat alone in the courtyard, thinking about various things in his mind. Big Brother Long, with your current strength, you are simply not a match for a Supreme Divine Dao martial artist. He nodded. Looking at Bai Ling, who suddenly appeared in front of him, how could Longao not know that a Supreme Divine Dao martial artist was a super existence above the Divine Dao? With his current strength, it was almost impossible to fight a Supreme Divine Dao martial artist. Longao could almost assert that as the grudge between him and the Heavenly King mansion continued to escalate, he believed that it was not impossible for the Western Heavenly King to personally take action. Above the Divine Dao was the Supreme Divine Dao, the Nirvana Realm, and finally the Peak Dao Comprehension. Longao still didn't know how the Supreme Divine Dao was divided into realms. Bai Ling, I want to ask, how is the Supreme Divine Dao above the 5 realms of the Divine Dao divided into strength? Big Brother Long, you don't know? He nodded. If he knew, he wouldn't ask. Big Brother Long, above the 5 realms of the Divine Dao are the 4 Supreme Realms. Sure enough. Longao had already guessed that the Supreme Divine Dao was just a general name, just like the Divine Dao Realm. The 5 realms of the Divine Dao were divided into the Void God Realm, the Spirit Condensation Realm, the Human God Realm, the Earth God Realm, and the Celestial God Realm. Bai Ling, what are the 4 Supreme Realms? Big Brother Long, the 4 Supreme Realms are the Divine King Realm, the Divine Emperor Realm, the Hierarch Realm, and the Divine Emperor Realm. The 4 Supreme Realms were the Divine King Realm, the Divine Emperor Realm, the Hierarch Realm, and the Divine Emperor Realm. After listening to Bai Ling's words, Longao was very surprised, because he didn't expect that above the 4 Supreme Realms of the Divine Dao, there were the Divine Emperor Realm, the Hierarch Realm, and the Divine Emperor Realm. Longao didn't know which realm the 4 Heavenly Kings were in. Big Brother Long, forgive me for being blunt, your current strength is really low. I have already sensed that there are many experts in this place. If you want to train here, you will encounter danger at all times. Longao didn't speak, because he had thought about the problem of strength countless times, but it was not an easy thing to improve his strength quickly. Longao was clear about this point, and Bai Ling was also clear about it. However, the path of cultivation itself was against the heavens. One needed to consolidate at every step, one step at a time. Otherwise, there would be no benefit in rushing for quick success. For warriors, the consequences were very serious. If he cultivated according to normal circumstances, not to mention the Nirvana realm, just the demigod realm, he didn't know how long it would take to break through. Longao was very clear that with his current strength, it was really not an easy thing to establish a foothold in the Massacre Abyss. If it was just fighting against divine Dao warriors, Longao had full confidence. No matter what, he still had 10 divine dragon corpse slaves. As long as it wasn't a divine god who came personally, he would kill one if one came, and destroy 2 if one came. If a divine god or a supreme divine Dao warrior came, how would he deal with it? Big brother Long, Bai Ling, go back. With a deep sigh, Bai Ling knew very well why Big brother Long wanted her to go back. With no other choice, Bai Ling turned into a white light and instantly returned to the god-killing sword. As soon as Bai Ling's figure disappeared, a figure appeared. It was none other than the West Sky King. Without guessing, Longao almost knew that the middle-aged man who just appeared in front of him was one of the 4 heavenly kings, the West Sky King. You are Black Wolf? Yes, you are the West Sky King? Ha ha ha, what an arrogant kid, Black Wolf, do you know where this is? Nonsense, asking the obvious. Longao looked coldly at the middle-aged man in front of him, and said with a smile. West Sky King, let's be frank. Although you and I haven't met, there is already a grudge between us. Cut the crap, what do you want to say this time? You don't have to take off your pants and fart. P.S. Today's 3 chapters, tomorrow's Monday. Everyone, get your tickets ready to see Xiao Jiu's explosive power. In this way, not to mention the West Heaven King, even if the Lord of the Abyss came in person, he still wouldn't be afraid. With the help of the 5 Elements slave, he could do whatever he wanted in the Massacre Abyss. Looking at the 5 Elements slave in front of him, Longao was a little helpless. If the 5 Elements slave could fight back, then not to mention the Massacre Abyss, he could even do whatever he wanted in the entire Tianwu continent. After repelling the West Heaven King this time, Longao could almost be sure that the West Heaven King would definitely not let it go. The biggest possibility was that the West Heaven King would ask for help from the backer behind him, which was the so-called Lord of the Abyss. Longao had already thought about it. If he left the Massacre Abyss now and returned to the Tianwu continent, it wouldn't be of much use. It was better to stay in the Massacre Abyss. If he could dominate the Massacre Abyss, then wouldn't he have the qualifications to enter the Tianwu continent? Longao was very clear in his heart that with the strength of a dragon sect, even with 500 divine dragon corps slaves, it would be very difficult for them to rise in the Sky Martial continent. If they had the help of the Massacre Abyss, then everything would be different. The Massacre Abyss had a total of 5 Lords of the Abyss. If he wanted to dominate the Massacre Abyss, the first thing he had to do was to deal with the 5 Lords of the Abyss. It was easy to think about, but it was extremely difficult to do it. In any case, the 5 Elements slave could only fight against a Nirvana realm martial artist. It was almost impossible to kill a Nirvana realm martial artist. According to the 5 Elements ancestor, the 5 Elements slave only knew how to defend and didn't know how to attack. In any case, the best way to dominate the Massacre Abyss was to first establish his own force. In this way, he could lay the foundation for the future. Chapter 11:28. In the Slaughter Abyss. In the city. The news that Black Wolf defeated the West Heaven King had spread throughout the Slaughter Abyss in the blink of an eye. Everyone who received the news turned pale with fright. Who was the West Heaven King? As everyone knew, the West Heaven King was one of the 4 heavenly kings under the Lord of the Eastern Abyss. The West Heaven King's identity and strength were obvious. A person who had just stepped into the slaughter abyss, unless he was out of his mind, would not seek his own death. Who on earth was Black Wolf? Everyone in the city was speculating, wanting to know who was behind Longao. Otherwise, would Black Wolf dare to do this? Provoking the West Heaven King was equivalent to provoking the Lord of the Abyss. It was impossible for Black Wolf not to know this. The slaughter abyss was shocked. In less than 2 days, Black Wolf's reputation had spread throughout the slaughter abyss. The slaughter abyss was a very realistic world. Here, everyone respected the strong. Black Wolf could kill Lu Chun and scare away the West Heaven King, which was recognized by everyone. Not only was no one despised, but everyone respected him. For such a world, Longao still liked it very much in his heart. The people in the slaughter abyss were at least realistic, unlike the people outside who were hypocritical. In the Abyss Mansion. In the main hall. There were 5 lords of the abyss. This mansion was the headquarters of Hong Lingtong, the Lord of the Eastern Abyss. As the Lord of the Abyss, both his identity and strength were there. Hong Lingtong looked very arrogant, fat, and 2 meters tall. My lord, what I just said is true. That old man is very powerful. If I'm not mistaken, the old man's strength should be in the Nirvana realm. He was not moved at all. Hong Lingtong sat lazily in his seat, sweating all over. No one knew why. I already know about Black Wolf. Before the West Heaven King could speak, Hong Lingtong continued. He can't do anything right. He was startled. The West Heaven King was so scared that he didn't dare to say a word. He stood there trembling. The Western Sky King knew very well what the Lord of the Abyss meant. If the Lord of the Abyss was unhappy, he could kill him at any time. After all, it was only a matter of minutes for the Lord of the Abyss to create a heavenly king. According to what you said, the other party should be a Nirvana stage martial artist. How many years has it been since a new Nirvana stage martial artist appeared in the Massacre Abyss? Hong Lingtong looked fine on the surface, but he was already extremely fearful in his heart. According to what the West Heaven King had just said, the other party's strength was unfathomable. Even he was not 100% sure that he was a match for the other party. Sir, what should we do now? Let's wait and see. Inform our men not to provoke Black Wolf. I want to see what the other 4 will do. The West Sky King was not a fool. He instantly understood what the Lord of the Deep Caves meant. Getting someone else to do the dirty work. At the end of the day, Hong Lingtong was not confident enough to deal with Black Wolf, so he wanted to borrow the power of the other 4 lords of the Deep Caves to kill him. Yes, sir. He waved his hand. Seeing that Hong Lingtong was unhappy, the West Sky King did not dare to continue talking nonsense. He turned around and slowly retreated. Hong Lingtong was the only one left in the entire hall. After the West Sky King left, Hong Lingtong's face instantly turned gloomy because he knew very well what it meant to have a Nirvana stage martial artist suddenly appear in the Massacre Abyss. Once another Nirvana stage martial artist appeared, the pattern of the Massacre Abyss would be completely broken, and his territory would be divided. It seems that I have to look for the 4 of them. 2 hours later. In the center of a small lake, inside a huge pavilion. The 5 lords of the Massacre Abyss were Hong Lingtong, the Lord of the East Abyss, Yang Ling, the Lord of the South Abyss, Luo Qingfeng, the Lord of the West Abyss, the Lord of the North Abyss, and the Lord of the Middle Abyss, Yi Chen. The 5 of them were the most powerful people in the Massacre Abyss. Usually, the 5 of them would hardly gather together. The 5 of them usually fought openly and secretly. Everyone wanted to kill the other 4 so that they could completely dominate the Massacre Abyss. Hong Lingtong, we've heard the news about Black Wolf. According to what you said just now, it seems that the old man next to Black Wolf should be a Nirvana stage martial artist. I really didn't expect that after so many years, the Massacre Abyss would attract another Nirvana stage martial artist. The five of them looked a little solemn. Because at this moment, none of them knew the strength of the Nirvana stage martial artist next to Black Wolf. Tell me, what should we do now? Everyone should know that the pattern of the massacre abyss hasn't changed for many years. This time, a new Nirvana stage martial artist has appeared. If this person has the strength of a Nirvana stage martial artist, Yi Chen, the Lord of the Middle Abyss, paused and continued. If the pattern changes, all 5 of our territories will be divided again. Why don't the 5 of us work together to kill this person? Each of them had their own ulterior motives. The 5 of them wanted to kill each other, so of course, they were not willing to work together. If it were not for the appearance of a new Nirvana stage martial artist, the 5 of them would not sit together at all. The strength of the 5 of them was about the same. Otherwise, the massacre abyss would have been unified long ago. Seeing that the 4 of them did not speak, Yi Chen's expression did not look too good. This was because almost no one responded to his suggestion. However, what did it mean? Forgive me for saying this. Hong Lingtong said at this time, Black Wolf dares to stir up trouble in the city and look down on the 5 of us. It seems that he has a strong backing. If the old man next to this person is stronger than you and me, how should we deal with him? The 4 of them nodded. Hong Lingtong's meaning was clear. Hong Lingtong was afraid because what he said was true. Black Wolf had a strong backing and openly provoked the 5 lords of the abyss. This in itself was a problem. It would be a lie to say that they were not afraid. Hong Lingtong, are we going to give up just like that? Choosing to give up was equivalent to agreeing to change the pattern of the massacre abyss and giving up territory for no reason. Who among the 5 of them would be willing to do that? For a moment, the pavilion was silent. None of the 5 lords of the abyss said anything. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do. They could neither advance nor retreat. It could be said that they were in a dilemma. Tell me, what should we do? If we give up so easily, whether you're willing or not, I'm not willing. How about this? Let's test the other party's strength first. If he's really strong, we'll take a step back. What do you think? Of course, the other 4 understood what Hong Lingtong meant. Since things had come to this point, the 4 of them could only nod in agreement. In this way, the 5 lords of the abyss got up and left, ready to test the strength of the old man next to Black Wolf to see if he was really that strong. Chapter 11:29. The Massacre Abyss. Less than 3 days after Black Wolf scared off the Western Sky King, a new force quietly rose. Dragon Sect. Someone dared to casually establish a force in the Massacre Abyss. It was simply courting death. The more Longao acted like this, the more everyone talked about it. They all thought that Black Wolf was fearless and must have a powerful backer behind him. The news spread. Black Wolf was just a gold great emperor martial artist. No matter how one looked at it, it was impossible for Black Wolf to scare off the Western Sky King, let alone establish a new force casually. Black Wolf's meaning was already very clear. Those with discerning eyes had already guessed what Black Wolf meant. He wanted nothing more than to establish his own order in the Massacre Abyss, and even become the 6th Abyss Master. If it were someone else, everyone would definitely despise, ridicule, and even curse them. But what about Black Wolf? Not only did Black Wolf behead Lu Qin, but he even scared off the Western Sky King. This had already shown his attitude, which was to provoke the Abyss Masters. The development of Dragon Sect was very fast. Black Wolf's fame had spread. Many people who were not from the 5 Abyss Masters had come. In just 3 days, there were already hundreds of people in Dragon Sect. At this rate of development, it wouldn't take long for Dragon Sect to become a major force. Fatty and Skinny became the 2 protectors of Dragon Sect, specializing in the development of Dragon Sect. In the city, there were no sects or clans. In the entire city, there were only 5 Abyss Masters, the so-called 5 major forces. The dragon sect established by Black Wolf was not recognized by the 5 Abyss Masters and was established casually. One could imagine what the result would be. In fact, everyone was watching, wanting to see the development of Dragon Sect later. The Western Sky King's defeat did not mean that the 5 Abyss Masters were also defeated. If Dragon Sect could contend with the 5 Abyss Masters, then the development speed of Dragon Sect would increase by hundreds of times. The base camp of Dragon Sect was in the courtyard. However, the current solitary courtyard was no longer the same as it was in the past. It was dozens of times larger because Longao had purchased the entire surrounding area of the solitary courtyard. If it was the previous Longao, it wouldn't have been easy to purchase it. However, the Longao had killed Lu Chun and scared off the Western Sky King. Many people would give Longao face. In the Slaughter Abyss, the strong were respected. Everyone respected the strong. "Master, what should we do now?" At this moment, the fat man and the skinny man were extremely excited. Until now, the two of them had never thought that things would develop to this point. Without Big Brother's help, the two of them might not even be able to enter the city, let alone have their current status. With my current strength, even if I return to the Martial Heaven continent, I won't be of much use. It's better to stay here. Other than developing the Dragon Sect, I can also temper myself and strive to break through to the demigod realm. With your talent and potential, it'll take you at least 2 years to break through to the divine realm. Longao was very clear that Xiling was telling the truth. Whether or not he could break through to the divine realm in 2 years was still unknown. After all, cultivation had to be done step by step. If he rushed for instant success, the consequences would be unimaginable. 2 years wasn't a long time, but it wasn't a short time either. His family in the 9 provinces continent had 500 Divine Dragon Corps slaves protecting them. He trusted that there wouldn't be any problems in the short term. As for the Dragon Sect's branch on the Martial Heaven continent, with his big brother and Dugubai's abilities, they would be able to develop it step by step. Even if I can't break through to the divine realm, I'll only leave the Slaughter Abyss after reaching the 9th heaven stage. At that time, I'll bring the entire Slaughter Abyss with me. Xiling and Bai Ling didn't say anything. Their meaning was very simple. They didn't dare to believe it. After all, the power of the 5 Lords of the Abyss was there for all to see. Even if Longao broke through to the divine realm, so what? The gap between Divine Realm experts and Nirvana experts was too great. They weren't even on the same level, let alone 5 Nirvana experts. Longao sneered and said, "The 5 of you, if that's the case, then I have nothing else to say. If you want to fight, then let's fight. If not, then all of you can get lost." It had to be said that Longao was indeed arrogant. No matter what, the 5 people in front of him were the 5 Lords of the Abyss, which was the so-called 5 Nirvana Realm martial artists. The 5 of them had ugly expressions and were incomparably furious. If it weren't for their fear of the old man beside Black Wolf, they would have attacked long ago. How could they still be angry and not attack? The 5 of them looked at each other and didn't know what to do. Should they attack or not? I really wonder if the 5 of you are the Lords of the Abyss. In my opinion, the 5 of you are just 5 mice, and as timid as mice. I just said if you want to fight, then let's fight. If not, then get lost. As he spoke, the 5 Elements servants stood in front of Longao and were already in a stance. Which one of you will attack first? Who was willing? No one was willing. Black Wolf was so confident. Even if the 5 of them were gathered here, Black Wolf was not the slightest bit afraid. Instead, he was domineering. Under such circumstances, who would be willing to be the first to attack unless their brains were flooded with water? The East Lord of the Abyss, Hong Lingtong, the South Lord of the Abyss, Yang Ling, the West Lord of the Abyss, Luo Qingfeng, the North Lord of the Abyss, and the middle lord of the abyss, Yi Chen. This matter was very laughable. After all, in the massacre abyss, the 5 lords of the abyss represented the 5 strongest powerhouses, and were also the strongest force in the massacre abyss. It was such a powerful force that they were afraid of a great emperor martial artist. Even if the old man was also a Nirvana realm martial artist, he was still 1 against 5, but the 5 of them were so scared that they did not dare to attack. If this matter were to spread, would anyone believe it? The 5 lords of the abyss also knew very well that they had embarrassed themselves greatly this time. They were intimidated by a puny great emperor martial artist. Not to mention being despised by others, even they would despise themselves. Fight? Or not? For a moment, the 5 of them were in a bit of a dilemma. They did not know whether to attack or not. Looking at the confident black wolf, the 5 of them were more or less a little uncertain. However, things had already come to this point. If they didn't make a move, they would never know the other party's strength. In that case, the 5 of them would be passive. Once He Lang took the initiative, he would take the initiative to attack. At that time, it would not be as simple as giving up their territory. Because of this, the 5 of them had already decided that no matter what, they would still be prepared to test the other party's strength. If they could win, they would eliminate the source of trouble and directly obliterate the 2 of them. If they could not win, they would change the structure of the city and thus the structure of the entire massacre abyss. 5 lords of the abyss would become 6 lords of the abyss. No one was willing to see such an outcome. Attack at the same time. The 5 lords of the abyss communicated through their spiritual senses. In a one-on-one situation, they really did not have full confidence that they could defeat the other party. Although the 5 of them knew that they could not afford to lose face if they fought 5 against 1, they had no other choice in this situation. In an instant, the 5 of them had all rushed out. Before they arrived, the terrifying aura of heaven and earth had already fiercely pressed down. The aura of heaven and earth was the unique aura of Nirvana martial artists. When the 5 Nirvana martial artists joined forces, the 5 auras of heaven and earth layered on top of each other. One could imagine how powerful it was. Longao did not move, nor could he move. Because with his strength, not to mention 1 against 5, even if it was 1-on-1, he would be instantly killed by the other party. The 5 lords of the abyss were shocked. They never thought that the other party's strength would be so strong. Just the aura of heaven and earth alone was no small matter. However, the battle had already reached this point. The 5 of them had no way to retreat. They could only brace themselves and fight. The 5 of them joined forces, and the 5 of them turned into palm energy and fiercely struck the old man. Not dodging? What did the old man mean? Wasn't he a little too arrogant? Chapter 1131. The old man didn't dodge, but the 5 didn't show any mercy. All 5 of their palms landed on the 5 elements slave. If it was an ordinary Nirvana realm martial artist fighting 1 against 5 and being hit by all 5 at the same time, he would definitely die. But the 5 elements slave's situation was completely different. It felt like cotton. Seeing that the other party didn't have the slightest reaction, the 5 lords of the abyss faces all changed, as if they had seen a ghost. They withdrew their palms and retreated. You! Get lost! Longao's voice was cold, as if it came from hell. If the Longao from before had said this, the 5 of them would have despised and even ridiculed him. But now, the 5 elements slave withstood a blow from the 5 lords of the abyss, which in itself already showed the old man's strength. The 5 of them thought that even the 5 of them couldn't be a match for the other party. Nirvana rebirth. The 5 of them thought at the same time, Nirvana rebirth, and the 5 of them knew very well what Nirvana rebirth meant. The 5 of them looked very ugly. There was no other way. They had already lost this battle, and if they continued to fight, the possibility of losing was the greatest. The 5 of them turned and left. In the blink of an eye, they had disappeared without a trace. Looking at the 5 figures gradually disappearing, Longao let out a long sigh of relief. In the end, the 5 of them were intimidated this time. Otherwise, if the 5 of them continued to attack, the 5 elements slaves' flaw of only defending and not attacking would definitely be exposed. At that time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, the 5 of them were intimidated by the 5 elements slaves' strong defense after only one attack. In the distance, the 5 of them were also very surprised. Although the 5 of them had guessed that the other party's strength was definitely not simple, they never thought that the other party's strength would be so strong that he could withstand their joint attack. If the other party chose to take the initiative to attack with such powerful strength, what would the 5 of them do? I can almost say that the other party's strength has reached Nirvana rebirth. Even if the 5 of us join forces, we are no match for him. No wonder Black Wolf is so arrogant, he has nothing to fear. Hearing Honglingtong's words, the other 4 lords of the abyss nodded in agreement. Then what should we do now? We can only choose to compromise. Compromise? The 5 of them sighed inwardly. As the abyss masters of the massacre abyss, whether it was status or strength, the 5 of them had never thought of compromising from the beginning to the end. If word of this got out, they would lose a lot of face. Would it work if he didn't compromise? The other party's strength was already there. If they were to meet force with force, there would only be 2 results. One was that the 5 of them would be killed, and the other was that both sides would suffer. The 5 of them didn't want either outcome. With no other choice, the 5 of them finally chose to compromise. The news that Longao had scared off the 5 lords of the deep caves hadn't spread, but anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the 5 lords of the deep caves hadn't said anything even though the dragon sect had been established for 10 days. What was the meaning of that? In other words, the 5 lords of the abyss had already acknowledged the existence of the dragon sect. In other words, the 5 lords of the abyss had chosen to compromise. Was that even possible? No one was willing to believe that the 5 lords of the deep caves would take the initiative to compromise. If it weren't for the fact that the dragon sect still existed intact, no one would choose to believe it at all. This time, everyone joined the dragon sect. In just one day, the speed of the dragon sect's development skyrocketed by hundreds of times. From 100 people at the beginning, it had directly grown to nearly 3,000 people. Such a development speed could be said to be very terrifying. However, the massacre abyss wasn't like the outside world. The base number of people in the massacre abyss wasn't that large. Therefore, to grow to 3,000 people in one day was already very terrifying. The scale of the dragon sect was also expanding. From the beginning, it was a single courtyard, but now it had expanded by hundreds of times. From now on, there was another force in the massacre abyss, and that was the dragon sect. Longao, you're really lucky. This time, you actually managed to scare the 5 lords of the deep caves. He nodded. Longao had always been confident in his luck. However, being able to scare the 5 of them this time, apart from luck, the 5 elements slaves' contribution was the greatest. The 5 elements slaves' defensive power was really terrifying. 1 against 5, and he managed to withstand it. But now that he thought about it, he was a little scared. No matter what, the 5 elements slave could only defend and couldn't attack. If the 5 of them continued to attack, they would definitely be exposed. He seemed to be able to guess Longao's thoughts. Xiling thought for a moment and said, Longao, no matter who it is, even if it's a Nirvana warrior, if the first attack doesn't succeed, and the 5 elements slave doesn't react at all, they will be scared out of their wits. Even you and I would be the same. He nodded. Longao was very clear about what Xiling meant. If nothing unexpected happens, the 5 lords of the deep caves won't act rashly. In the short term, we can develop the dragon sect as much as we want. Longao, have you ever thought that even if your dragon sect develops, without a super powerhouse to oversee it, it will always be a paper tiger? There's no other way. Longao was also helpless because it was easier said than done to find a super powerhouse to oversee it. If there really was a super powerhouse, he or she would have been overseeing Longao Peak or a branch of the Dragon sect. Why wait until now? Longao, although you can't find a super powerhouse to oversee it, you can arrange a formation. I have already sensed that this place is very special. If we use the power of heaven and earth to arrange the Million Ancestral Swords formation, I believe its power can be increased by more than 10 times. What do you mean? Longao was a little confused by Xiling's words. He didn't know what Xiling was trying to say. He knew the power of the Million Ancestral Swords formation better than anyone else. If he was a god-level formation master, the Million Ancestral Swords formation he arranged might be able to kill a Supreme Path warrior. As for whether it could kill a Supreme Path warrior, it was still unknown. Because of this, with his current level of formation skills, even if he could use the power of heaven and earth to arrange the Million Ancestral Swords formation, it was still a big problem whether it could kill a Supreme Path warrior. Not to mention killing a Nirvana Realm warrior, it was simply an unrealistic problem. Longao, if it were any other place, you definitely wouldn't be able to do this. But here, the Million Ancestral Swords formation you arranged can definitely kill a Nirvana Realm warrior. Why? Hearing Xiling's words, Longao was also a little expectant and couldn't wait to ask. To be able to kill a Nirvana Realm martial artist, if he could really do this, then the rise of the Dragon sect in the Massacre Abyss was practically an ironclad matter. Such a temptation, even Longao would not be able to withstand it. Chapter 1132. Longao, I have to say that you're really lucky. What was going on? His luck didn't seem to have anything to do with the Million Ancestral Swords formation. Before Longao could ask, Xiling continued. Longao, there's a secret at the bottom of where you're standing. Come with me. He was curious and looking forward to it. Normally, Xiling wouldn't be like this. The more Xiling acted like this, the more Longao looked forward to it. Longao didn't resist. He was instantly enveloped by the purple sword aura. Before he could react, his body had disappeared from the hall. Underground. In the huge cave. Looking at the pitch-black surroundings, Longao did not know why Violet's spirit had brought him to this place. What was it for? Xiling, what's the secret here? He smiled mysteriously. Xiling came to the center of the cave. A powerful sword aura exploded from his body and shrouded the entire cave. The sword aura was everywhere. At this point, Longao still didn't know what Xiling was doing. Silence. Longao did not say anything because he knew very well that Violet's spirit would not bring him here for no reason, nor would she do all this for no reason. Violet's spirit must have her own intentions for doing so. As a powerful Jianling, the sword aura that exploded from Xiling's body filled the entire cave. After the sword aura filled the empty cave, a huge black ball suddenly appeared in midair. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation in the air. Looking at the black ball that suddenly appeared in midair, Longao was surprised. He didn't know how Xiling had found it. But one had to know that ever since they entered the cave, Longao had already searched once and did not find anything wrong. Could the secret that Xiling was talking about be this black ball? Bai Ling, what's your sister doing? He believed that Bai Ling definitely knew what Xiling was doing. Big brother Long, your luck is really good. There aren't many things in the Martial Heaven continent that I've found for you. I really didn't expect to find them here. What was that? Xiling was like this, and so was Bai Ling. She couldn't wait to get rid of Longao. Bai Ling, what is it? Big brother Long, have you heard of Sword Chi Origin? Sword Chi Origin? What was that? Shaking his head, Longao said honestly. No, Bai Ling, what is the origin of Sword Aura? Big brother Long, Sword Chi Core is the core energy of the Sword Tao. It's rare in the Martial Heaven continent. Sword Chi Core isn't just useful to sword cultivators, it's also useful to us Jianling. So that was the case. Longao already knew what the origin of sword chi was. He would be lying if he said that he wasn't moved. Bai Ling had already said that the origin of sword chi wasn't just useful to him. It was also useful to Xiling and Bai Ling. Since that was the case, why didn't Xiling just devour it? He believed that it would be of great help to Xiling and Bai Ling's cultivation and recovery. However, Xiling didn't do so. Even without Bai Ling's explanation, Longao could guess what Xiling was trying to do. He just wanted to help him. Bai Ling, according to your sister's idea, should we use the origin of sword chi to set up the 10,000 ancestral swords formation? That's right. Just as expected. Xiling had already said that the 10,000 ancestral swords formation he set up this time could contend against the Nirvana realm martial artist. If that was the case, Longao could almost guess why Xiling was so confident. It was because of the origin of sword chi. Big Brother Long, my sister wants you to use the origin of sword chi to set up the 10,000 ancestral swords formation. I want you to devour the origin of sword chi to verify your sword Dao. If nothing goes wrong, the origin of sword chi can help you break through to the titled Great Emperor realm, or even become a ninth heaven demigod. One was to set up the 10,000 ancestral swords formation that could kill a Nirvana realm martial artist. The other was to devour the origin of sword chi to quickly increase his strength. It was a dilemma. If it were anyone else, they would definitely choose to devour it. After all, if they were strong, they could at least protect themselves. As for the 10,000 ancestral swords formation, it was a dead thing. Once it was set up, it couldn't be moved. Big Brother Long, what's your choice? We'll wait for your sister. Bai Ling and Longao didn't speak. They quietly watched Xiling draw out the so-called origin of sword chi. The black ball was the size of a head. It was shrouded in layers of sword chi that erupted from Xiling's body. Until now, Longao still couldn't feel how terrifying the power of the origin of sword chi was. Longao had already guessed that the black ball that Xiling drew out was the so-called origin of sword chi. The sword chi disappeared. Xiling carefully carried the black ball to the two of them. He exclaimed, "It's hard to imagine. It's really hard to imagine. Once we devour this origin of sword chi, I believe it will be of great help to our cultivation and recovery. Xiling, Bai Ling just told me about the origin of sword chi. Since that's the case, you and Bai Ling can devour the origin of sword chi. The dragon sect won't be short of time. Longao, I've already said that I'm helping you. There's no need to dawdle. I've already calculated. Apart from setting up the 10,000 ancestral swords formation, my sister and I will each take a third of this origin of sword chi. The remaining third is yours." Longao didn't care much about his breakthrough. If he could successfully set up the 10,000 ancestral swords formation, it would be indescribably beneficial to the development of the branch of the dragon sect. By then, the dragon sect would be as stable as Mount Tai. Even if the 5 Abyss Lords came, the dragon sect wouldn't have the slightest fear. Chapter 1133. Sword Aura Origin. Xiling first split the Sword Aura Origin into two. Half of it was used to set up the formation, while the other half was given to the 3 of them. The other half of the Sword Aura Origin was split into 3 again. 1/3 was given to Xiling, 1/3 to Bai Ling, and 1/3 to Longao. "Brother Long, I'll give you my Sword Aura Origin." "Sister." He shook his head. Bai Ling's face was firm as she said, "Sister, I believe you know my situation very well. This Sword Aura Origin is almost useless." Bai Ling was a little disappointed. She was a little weary, but more than that, she was in despair. Looking at Bai Ling's expression, Longao didn't know why, but he felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. If Brother Long can devour this Sword Aura Origin, I believe it won't be a problem for him to break through to the titled Great Emperor realm. If he's lucky, he might even break through to the demigod realm. Hearing his sister's words, Xiling let out a deep sigh. Sister, you're really silly. Why do you have to do this? Sister. She waved her hand. Longao's face was equally firm as he said, Bai Ling, I know you're doing this for my own good. However, I definitely can't take this sword aura origin. Brother Long. Without giving Bai Ling any chance to speak, Longao continued. Bai Ling, you just said that this sword aura origin isn't very useful to you. However, it should still be somewhat useful. Let's not give up. If 1 year isn't enough, we'll take 2 years. If 2 years isn't enough, we'll take 3 years. I don't believe that you won't recover one day. This was Longao's character. Bai Ling, if you don't devour the sword aura origin, I won't devour it either. Alright, sister. Even if Longao can devour your sword aura origin, he won't be able to break through to the demigod realm. She looked at her sister, and then at Longao. In the end, Bai Ling didn't say anything. She turned into a white light and shot into the god's slaying sword. Seeing this situation, regardless of whether it was Xiling or Longao, they both heaved a sigh of relief. Longao, I have something to tell you. As he spoke, Xiling emitted a powerful sword chi that enveloped the two of them. My sister can't hear our conversation. Longao, I want to ask you now. Do you know that my sister likes you? He nodded. Longao was not a cold-blooded animal. He had already noticed Bai Ling's feelings for him. In the beginning, Longao wasn't sure. But as time passed and he spent more time with Bai Ling, he slowly realized that Bai Ling seemed to like him. Longao more or less couldn't bear it in his heart. In Longao's heart, there were only 2 women. One was Aoxue, and the other was Yuyin. Besides them, Longao really didn't want to accept any other woman. Xiling seemed to be able to guess Longao's thoughts. He sighed and said, Longao, my sister is very kind. She never wants to hurt anyone. Especially you. I also like it if you don't hurt her. I know. You don't know. I know that you only have Yuyin and Aoxue in your heart. But Longao, I want to remind you. My sister has done so much for you. She's such a kind girl. Don't let her down. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Longao wasn't afraid of Xiling. He really didn't want to hurt Bai Ling. Just as Xiling had said, Bai Ling was so kind. Not to mention himself, he believed that no matter who it was, no one would have the heart to hurt such a kind person. What should he do? Longao didn't say anything. In this situation, he really didn't know what to do. Accept? Reject? If he accepted, he would be lying to himself. At the same time, he would be lying to Bai Ling. If he rejected, he really couldn't bear to hurt Bai Ling. He was in a dilemma. Longao, I didn't ask you to accept my sister immediately. You can take your time. After Xiling finished speaking, he turned into a purple light and disappeared. Longao was the only one left in the cave. It was empty. It was quiet. Longao stood alone in the cave. In his mind, he thought about Bai Ling. After such a long time together, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't moved by Bai Ling's kindness. However, Longao still couldn't get over it. If he accepted Bai Ling, how could he face Aoxue and Yuyin? Not wanting to continue thinking about this problem, Longao directly devoured 1/3 of the sword chi origin. According to Xiling and Bai Ling, once he devoured and refined the sword chi origin, his cultivation could continue to increase. It wasn't impossible for him to break through from the peak gold rank Great Emperor to the titled Great Emperor realm. One had to know. The peak gold rank Great Emperor realm was only 1 step away from the titled Great Emperor realm. For others, this step might be very difficult. However, for Longao, as long as he had enough power, it was simply a piece of cake. This was the so-called comparison. After devouring the sword chi origin, Longao immediately circulated the sword chi in his body. He believed that using the sword chi to refine the sword chi origin would be much faster. The dragon sect's influence continued to expand. The 5 Abyss Masters didn't interfere in the slightest, and the others didn't even dare to stop them. Just like that, the dragon sect's rapid rise into the slaughter abyss. Perhaps it happened so quickly that some people didn't even have time to react. Everyone was wary of Black Wolf's strength. As for Fatty and Skinny, they were a pain in the ass. Everyone in the massacre abyss knew that no matter if it was Fatty or Skinny, they were only great Emperor realm martial artists. With such strength, how could they survive in the city? But even so, Fatty and Skinny somehow got lucky and followed Hei Lang, who suddenly rose to prominence. Now they were doing very well. Those who used to bully the two of them now had to lower their heads and bow when they saw the two of them. It was still the same saying. In the massacre abyss, the strong were respected. As long as you had a strong enough fist, you were the master. You could set the rules of the massacre abyss. After all, the rules of the massacre abyss were set by the 5 abyss masters. Fatty, I haven't seen the master for a long time. Do you know where the master went? Shaking his head, Fatty also didn't know. He said, the master has always been elusive. The dragon sect has just been established. I believe the master has a lot of things to deal with. As for the dragon sect's matters, we will help the master as much as we can. You're right. I've already thought about it. We'll rescreen the disciples who enter the sect. Even if we accept fewer disciples, they can't be bad. What do you think? Almost all the disciples the dragon sect accepted were great emperors. As for great emperor realm martial artists above the purple rank, there were very few of them. After all, the dragon sect was still a little lacking compared to the 5 abyss masters. You're right. We only need elites. We must have a solid foundation. Otherwise, we'll always be the ones to suffer. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.